is the number of things we can have? Because I'm going to fight tooth and nail to keep all of that for judicial accountability.
Jeff.
Okay, that's actually a really good question, and the way that would work. So if I can give just a little bit of explanation on how that would work legislatively. So one of the when you talk about what is under a single subject doesn't mean a single action item. It means that all of the things that are put together into one actual bill are of a similar enough subject that you're not doing what the U.S. Congress does, which is something we hate here in Texas, the fact that they do this, where, hey, I'm going to pass this bill on health care. This is an actual example. I'm going to pass the Obamacare health care bill and also nationalize student loans as a way to make up the difference in the CBO score on the bill, right? All of the nationalized student loan stuff happened in the Obamacare bill, so they could put all that together into one bill and make it happen. We don't have that in Texas. You have to limit it to a single subject. So when it comes to something like the Judicial Integrity Bill, you have several of those items are real clear transparency items, and then there's one that requires completely reshaping the board into being only elected by people who are not judges nor lawyers. So that's where you might start crossing the one subject rule. That's a little hard. That's a little slightly different of a topic. Typically, if you have a bill that's going to be that big of an encompassing thing where you're both changing rules around something's existence and what it does, as well as altering other things, that's something that goes through the sunset process and has some suspensions of rules put on top of it, because you're dealing with an entire state agency and massive amount of structural reform that requires lots of hearings that happen over the interim to make that happen. So, like, for instance, a good example for this would be taking those first three items from judicial accountability would be the closest to getting something to a single subject, and then getting to restructuring the board is sort of a different action item than transparency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. But in your analogy, though, you compared Obamacare to student loan.
I was just using that's an actual example of those were both the same bill.
No, I get
Right,
that,
yeah,
but
okay.
those are two completely different things.
Yes,
right?
that's a far end example, but you have closer end examples of like what gets a bill killed in the legislature, or it's not just a point of order, it's something that the courts can overturn a bill for afterwards if it's more than one subject, because it's a constitutional rule, not just a rule in the legislative rules.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that whatever we decide are the action items underneath a given topic. I'm not suggesting those should be a single bill. In fact, I'm totally down with them breaking it up so that they get as much passed as possible. Whatever works, I don't really care. What I am saying, though, is that to simply limit us to 8 action items, and when they, somebody said something about, a person can only do so much. I'll say again, they filed 11,807 bills during regular session. I feel like the Republican Party of Texas can have, I don't know, last time there were 216 bills that were ascribed as legislative priority bills, right? So now we're going to go from 216 to 8. I find that difficult to...
All right, we have other committee members who want to talk. Ms. Lewis.
Oh, yeah, I'll just make it quick. I, too, want more legislative priorities, but the reality is we are limited. And as far as complex issues, we cannot do that due to the rules, but what we can do is have a subject heading and give examples. For instance, election integrity, and then name 3 examples of something you would want them to address. It's one issue, but we cannot combine unique things or differently compartmental things.
So here's the problem with that. And I agree with the intent there, but at the end of the day, let's say you do that. You say we want to advance election integrity by, I don't know what that sentence would look like. Advance election integrity by passing measures that improve the security of our elections, which could include this, this, and this. So, okay, this, and this don't happen, but they do something different on election integrity. Did they fulfill the priority?
No.
What if they do 1 out of 3? Did they fulfill
Not
the priority?
if those 3. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. We got to hold them to account, but we can still hold them to. if those three are important, it's the only way is really what I'm saying, to work three things in that you absolutely have to have, but it just has to be examples. That's as far as we can go.
I think this is something, and I'll let Rick talk in a sec. I think this is something where we're going to have to use our best judgment, and so I think the single subject rule is a great guideline for our work, because ultimately, if you can get a legislative priority accomplished in a single bill, that's ideal. If you can fit everything in a sentence, that's also a good that's also a good indicator. So the judicial accountability is actually a good example, because we can phrase it as pass a bill that does this, this, and this, and it would fit under the single subject rule. It could pass. They're all kind of related, and so that's a way that we can get most of those items together in a priority without running afoul of what we're trying to do. But Christmas trees, laundry lists, bullet points under a priority, I think that's what we want to avoid, because ultimately what that becomes is, instead of doing, like, it's a way around doing the hard work we have to do. And the hard thing we have to do is cut down to 15 things. Sure, it would be easy to just take everything we want and combine it into 15 different items and then hope people vote for it. But then we're not really doing our jobs. We're just passing another platform. And so ultimately, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the things that are being asked for belong in the platform committee. These are 15 priorities. Spencer.
Okay, I'm trying to not take offense, but it seems like you're being kind of dismissive of the Legislative Priorities Committee 2 years ago. And I haven't had any delegate come up to me that was here 2 years ago and be like, man, I feel like we had a really laundry list under election integrity last time. And so I'm taking it kind of personally, because I know that Jill Glover really pushed hard for everything that was in that list. Yes, it was hard. I'm not here to make a legislator's life easier. They work for us, not the other way around.
All right, is Rick Briscoe.
The way the single subject bill works in the legislature is the subject must be tied to the title of the bill. For example, if you had a bill for protection of citrus fruit, apples would not be a single subject. Whereas if you had a bill for protection of fruit, apples and oranges would be covered. On the subject of election integrity, the bills submitted have numerous line item action items that are all election integrity listed, and there's no prohibition against doing, for example, paper ballots, watermarked, serialized, hand marked.
Right, because all of those different attributes have to do with the characterization of the ballot, right? So like those are just different things we're asking for about the ballots themselves.
The point is they're related to the title of the bill very closely. And we don't have to have a separate bill for a paper ballot, another one for a serialized ballot, and so on. And 2 years ago, we applied that rule because that's what the legislature does. And it helps in terms of accountability. Let's say we've got 3 or 4 bullet points on the subject. Well, if a particular legislator votes for 2 of them, we can say that, and criticize him for not voting for the other 2.
Peyton.
Yeah, Scott, I mean no disrespect at all, but it seems to me that your interpretation of what we're trying to do contradicts what we've always done in the past. At least that's just my perspective. And that, as I said, in the past, we'd have a subject was electric grid, integrity of the electric grid, and we would specifically state some of the things that painfully obvious to everybody that needs to be fixed. There'd be multiple items, and some of them actually require different legislative bills to fix. But the feedback I would get from the SREC and from some of our representatives was, this is exactly what we need, is specifically what do you want and do you think is the most pressing issue around this to fix. And in in general just say harden the grill. Well, you know, that can mean a whole lot of different things to different people, and so they do some piddling little thing and come back and everybody wants money and want us to vote for them, saying, look what we did for you. And many times my response to them is, you did virtually nothing. And of course, that's why we're getting a number of our reps out of office this time around, is because they've done so little, and yet they don't seem to recognize it, and you can't communicate with them. So fire them and start over. And I think people want to see serious, real results, not tokens, and you won't get it with just a broad brush approach. And so I hope you'll take the comments in the spirit it's intended. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Malati.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the sentiments here, in that I think we do want specific, but we do want some, you know, granularity that work together under a certain topic, because sometimes, you know.
You just speak directly into the
Okay,
microphone. Yeah.
sorry. I think we do need to have a few points underneath a specific legislative priority. For example, with elections, you know, you can clean up the voter rolls, but if you don't limit mail-in ballots, you know, there are things that work together that have to kind of go together for that to work, for it to actually be effective. So I think we need to keep that in mind when we're putting these together. Okay?
For sure. Has everybody completed the survey yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And actually, we can probably look that up. But while we're working on that, just if you haven't done it yet, I will share, out of the list of 43, there are only 11 so far that have actually gotten 0 votes from someone. So this is not going to be a situation where we can just figure out what nobody picked and cut it off and we're done. I mean, there's going to be a lot of debate. Even some of those are probably going to be folded into others. So like I said, this is not dispositive at all. It's just a way to guide our thinking without starting from scratch. And but while we continue working on your surveys, we'll see if there are any left out there. But I do want to go ahead to start letting people testify because we've had some people waiting. So first up will be Leanne Penton-Walker.
Point of inquiry, real quick,
yes.
Chair. Can you release that information to us
What information?
of the survey?
Not after everyone's done. I will. Yeah, Leanne Penton-Walker, and then on deck after her is Kevin Formolo in the room.
Microphone's out.
Are you Kevin? Oh, my mic went out. Okay. All right, is Kevin Formolo in the room? Kevin Formolo, Cindy Dravick, Cynthia Bream. Oh, yeah, you're on the list. Okay, you're on deck.
You come sit over here.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. I am Leanne Penton-Walker. I am the former mayor of Plum Grove, Texas. That is in Liberty County. The best kept little secret in Texas, maybe in America. Kelly stood up here before and she told you the UN is in your state. I tell you they are. I am the whistleblower on Colony Ridge. I have been going to Commissioner's Court and fighting Colony Ridge since February the 10th of 2015. Prior to that, I was just complaining to everybody and trying to learn the lay of the land, trying to follow what I call chain of command. And the higher I went up in the command, the more I found out, the more people knew about it, and they wanted to blow up smoke up my behind. And that, what are you talking about? Where's that at? I never heard of that. Well, it's the largest non-border colony in America. And it has grown from when I started fighting. There were about 10,000 people out there that were illegals. Now we're right up to 80,000. And they all go to one school district, Cleveland ISD, my alma mater. That was the first thing I complained about at Commissioner's Court. I asked for 2 simple things. Make legislation where in the county they cannot develop more than an acre at one time in any subdivision. That'll cut down on the colonia. You know, having 1/3 acre lots is never a good idea. The other thing I worried about was the school district. How do we maintain this? We're a school district of 6,000 and we just Liberty County was 150 years old, and they barely had the infrastructure for 75,000 people. And then in less than 7 years, we add another 75,000 people there, and our infrastructure's more inadequate today than it was then. When you have 30,000 lots in one school district, the average Hispanic family has 4 children. That means you're going to add, over a period of time, 120,000 kids to one school district. We've gone from 6,000 to 15,000. Texans just don't seem to care about Cleveland, Texas. They don't seem to care about that colonia that's like the Battle of Fallujah every Saturday night when they're shooting thousands of rounds of ammunition in front of our homes. I just drove through Texas. You guys live in some great neighborhoods. You really do. It seems quiet and rural and sweet. But over here at the state, they're having to give me $40 million so I can have more DPS troopers out in Colony Ridge. That was great, and it made a really good soundbite. But Joe Biden and Merrick Garland took those away after about 6 weeks when they questioned the bill. So when you rattle their cages out there and you send all that DPS out there and you scare them, and then the DPS leaves in 6 weeks, what do you think happens to us natives that live out there? We're sitting ducks. We were a town of 600. All their roads go through us. The county knew. I'm telling you now, your government knows. If you talk to Dan Patrick and he tells you he didn't know, tell him Leanne's got a picture from 2016 showing you. Can I ask for one more minute?
Yes, and also I'll open up for, go ahead with your minute, and then I'll ask for questions.
You need to look at your Republican leaders and how much money they've taken from Colony Ridge. I had to hire a private investigator to find out that my governor took $1.5 million from them. I had to hire a private investigator to find out that Colony Ridge was awarded a federal opportunity zone by Greg Abbott after the first $500,000. Y'all might not like that I'm saying that. I don't care. I live in a war zone. I am thankful to the DOJ for showing up. I am thankful for Ken Paxton, whose neck was put on the line for going after Colony Ridge and continuing to do so. The only Republican in that House that y'all pay for that has helped me fight is Ken Paxton. They all knew, and they all did nothing.
All right, Hans.
Hans Assenfeld, SD 29. What would be your legislative priority? What would be the wording that you would want?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm very solution-oriented. I'm a real estate developer, and I like to move real quick and get things done. The first thing you can do is make it within the state of Texas an illegal cannot buy real property. They cannot lease an apartment, nor can they lease a house from an owner, anybody. You make it where they don't have anywhere to stay. The second thing you do is they cannot get insurance for their cars if they don't have a valid Texas driver's license. And then the third thing you do, and you know, thankful for the mayor of Dallas when he reached out to me and said, how in the hell are you dealing with it down there when we only got 12,000 and you're dealing with 50,000? I said, well, I talked to my police officer after we finally got our police organization started back up, and we made a policy that we pull you over and you don't have a license, we'll write you a ticket. But if you don't have car insurance, I'm going to tow your car. And you cannot get your car back because you do not have a valid American identification. Then I sell your vehicle. And so that's how you handle it. You handle it hard and you handle it fast. I don't need Morgan Luttrell to tell me I need more cops in Plum Grove. I've known that since 2016. Now the sound bites are there. They're here. This is a UN model. I spotted it right away as a developer. When I printed it out, the best in the nation in development looked at that plat and went, no, where in the hell is that? I said, that's Liberty County. And they said, that's an invasion. This is a business model that is being set up and going to put in every state. So when they take all 3 chambers, and they're going to, from what I've heard around here for the last 3 days, because I value life, but I value the life of American children that are dying from fentanyl. And that needs to be our priority. The children that are on this earth that are suffering in Cleveland ISD. The canaries are in the coal mine, y'all. They're trying to sell drugs or give them to our kids in the school districts every day. And you sit here and we've got to do something. We can't talk about it. It's too late. They've got 80,000 people in one county, a voting block. They can take over SD3 in a heartbeat. All they need is for the Democrats to give them the right to vote. And that's what's coming. There's going to be a Colony Ridge in every county in every state in the nation. And the great replacement's happening right before your eyes. And if you, anytime you want to come down to Plum Grove, Texas, and go see the largest non-border collar in EMEA, come see me. Don't believe, I mean, watch Glenn Beck. He did pretty good on the place. That was a pretty good one. I mean, Tucker did a pretty good section. Y'all, you can Google me. I never wanted to do this. I was pretty happy in my life. You go back and Google me. You're going to find some stories on Leanne Pitton Walker, because I don't take no mess off anybody. I'm here to fight for my state and my country. I have a gold star I wear. And I'm telling you, if you don't come and fight with us now, it ain't going to matter in 6 months, a year. Come see. And don't come see on a Monday at 10 o'clock when they're all in school and at work. Come see me on a Saturday night about 10 o'clock after the Modelo and the tequila's kicked in, and it sounds like Baby Fallujah out there. Thank y'all.
All right, Michael Ferguson, you get to follow that.
You have to talk to.
Yeah, you have to talk to. Yeah.
Sorry,
All right, Michael Ferguson.
I didn't grab you, sorry.
Hi, my name is Michael Ferguson, and I'm an attorney from Colleyville, Texas. And I've had a real estate company for 40 years in October of this year, and I've been licensed as an attorney for since 1997. I'm here to advocate for transparency and accountability in the judiciary system. I think that our judiciary system, not just in Texas, but nationwide, is in serious trouble. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. The 3 measures that I'm talking about is making court proceedings where the parties have audio, video, and written record of what takes place in the court. And when we had COVID lockdowns, there was always audio, video, and written record. So I think that that can be accomplished. Number 2 is that I think that the judges should have to provide findings of facts and conclusions of law in every case that they have. There's going to be a lot of pushback on that, especially from the judges saying they have too much on their docket and they don't have the resources to handle it. But in my opinion, one of the problems that's clogging the dockets is that we have too many judges that are not following the rule of law. They're not following statutes. They're not following the rules promulgated by the Texas Supreme Court. They ignore the precedent set by a higher court. And so that creates more litigation, and to me, it's almost like a welfare system for attorneys. And so we need to work on that. The third one, and I'll go back, I want to talk a little bit more about the clogging the dockets, and not, I don't know if everyone knows, but there are Supreme Court cases out there that state that attorneys can commit fraud, and they have with impunity as long as they're doing it in court. And to me, that's wrong. The rationale from the Supreme Court is that you have to protect the attorney-client relationship, which I understand, and you need attorneys to aggressively advocate for their clients. I understand that. But the piece that they're leaving out is that we have a state bar that is incompetent and or corrupt, and it doesn't matter which, but they do not discipline attorneys. And then you have SCJC that's supposed to discipline the judges, and we have the same issue there. So if you're allowing attorneys to commit fraud, and that can be attorneys going into court, misrepresenting to the court or the jury, they're misrepresenting facts, they're misrepresenting law. And the ones, and I'm one of the attorneys that speaks out about it, you're going to get punished more than the people that are doing the bad, being unethical. Fine, all right. The last thing is just to make SCJC public. I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. And a quick question for Don and Rick.
So this morning, the Rules Committee next door to this committee voted to include judges in Rule 44, which allows a censure. And they also allowed county chairs to deny access to the ballot for a censure. Does that help your problem?
Now, can you say that one more time? I'm hard of hearing.
I'm sorry. Next door, they voted to include judges in the 44 censure rule, which would allow them to be censured just like Dade Phelan was, and now he's facing defeat. But a little while ago, the committee next door allowed county chairs to deny access to the ballots of those people censured. That would include the judges. Does that help your problem?
I'm not familiar with it, so I would be afraid to comment on it right now.
Rick?
I'm not so sure about other counties, but here in Bear County, we have a lot of Democrat judges, so party rules really don't apply. And a great many of them have the minimum requirement by law to be a judge. Some of them haven't even ever had a jury trial, not one. Do you believe adopting something like the Missouri plan would be beneficial? The Missouri plan, the governor.
So he's asking about adopting the Missouri plan for choosing judges, where judges would be appointed, correct?
The judges are appointed, and then there's a follow-up retention election. So we do have the opportunity to kick the bum out.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the plan. To me, judges should be appointed. That's my personal opinion. I know other people disagree, but
Well,
there would need to be qualifications.
my view is many of the occupants of the court simply are unqualified.
I think that would be a good idea.
All right.
Thank you.
With no further questions, thank you for your time, Michael. And if you could check in with our secretary. Next up will be Deborah Simmons, and then Carl Merkel. Carl Nathaniel Merkel.
Hello, my name is Deborah Simmons. I'm with SD24, and I am asking for a legislative priority regarding prohibit sexual grooming to minors. And I know we had Stop Sexualizing Texas Kids last session, and there was a lot of attention put on the obscenity exemptions and the affirmative defenses that are in the penal code. It can be very confusing. We actually had 13 bills that were filed. They didn't get hearings. Nothing happened with them. Nothing traveled with them. And I think as we've moved through the process and learned more about how to deal with this, I want to share with you a couple of things from perspective. So first of all, we're talking about physical, digital, and services. Please don't leave out digital. Digital is the future. That's where all the problems are. You can fight the books on the shelves all you want, but it's in ebooks. It's periodicals, it's magazines, it's encyclopedias, all online. And what we find there is not just the graphic images that you see in the books, not just the explicit text that's in the books, but also hot links to harmful materials. And when I say harmful, I mean we're talking porn sites, we're talking dating sites, and not just like kind of dating, like inappropriate for minors. There's also advertising that's going on in there for illicit drugs, cannabis, tobacco, things that kids can't have, shouldn't be dealing with. And then there's just a lot of obscenity. Obscene devices. It sends children to the websites where they can buy them. It explains with pictures how to use them in these databases. So we want to make sure that we don't leave out digital. That's one of my emphasis. Also, we talked about in the last convention, keeping enforcement. Enforcement needs to be criminal. It needs to be civil. It needs to be other. And when I say other, we get creative. And that includes any regulatory type of things, certifications, educator certifications. We need to strengthen some of that. Because for some reason, educators and librarians are so dedicated to their worldview and to accessing all of our children that they're willing to protect this harmful material in the libraries, on the internet, in the classrooms. And it's unacceptable. In the Legislative Priority Subcommittee, you would have received a report from us. I completely support that that language and Kristen Bentley's work. Thank you so much to that committee. And in it, we have talked about the definition of grooming and how it should include desensitizing children to sexual topics, exposing children to sexual content, and normalizing sexual behavior for children, and breaking down child's natural boundaries, making them vulnerable to sexual abuse, making them vulnerable to trafficking, all of the different problems. And I think with grooming and some of the language that we can use there, we should be leading to fight trafficking. So I just want to ask you to do that. And the language, again, I support the committee and would look for any questions available.
All right. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you for coming, and please check in with Michael over here. Next up is Carl Merkel, and then after him is Nate Smith here. All right, you're up next.
Okay, great. Okay. Hello, my name's Carl Merkel. I'm from Senate District 26, Precinct 4096 Chair. And this is really both a platform and legislative priority issue, I believe. SD 26 passed a resolution I sponsored, and it states, resolved, we call on we the people to follow the instructions given in 2 Chronicles 7:14. I call it the repentance priority. I have a book I wrote called Kidnapped by a Criminally Behaving Bankruptcy Judge. I'm happy to pass out copies to you. It says it's revealing the spiritual cause of many of the 2 Chronicles 7:13 plagues since March 2020 that dominate headline news. So let me just read to you what 2 Chronicles 7:13 and 7:14 says. It's from the New Living Translation. It says, at times, this is God speaking, at times I might shut the heavens so that no rain falls, or command grasshoppers to devour your crops, or send plagues among you. So think CV-19, think stolen presidential election, think border security, think child pornography, whatever we've been dealing with here today are all what I consider to be plagues. So that's 13. 14, God continues to say, then, if my people who are called by my name. So read into that, Christians or disciples of Jesus Christ. It doesn't include any atheists. It doesn't include people who are some other religion. It's just, this is addressed to Christians and only Christians in this room. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, meaning to repent, I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and restore their land. Who doesn't want this land restored? The Texas Constitution preamble reads, humbly invoking the blessings of Almighty God, the people of the state of Texas to ordain and establish this Constitution. The U.S. Constitution starts with a preamble too. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So as established, both the U.S. and the Texas Constitutions are, both governments, entered into a Joshua 24-style covenant relationship with the Creator God invoked therein. It is not, constitutionally speaking, a government of, by, and for big government, big business, and big religion, which it's become. But practically speaking, because of the 2020 stolen presidential election, it now is. Can I have 1 more minute?
I suppose.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'll close it.
Your minute. Yeah.
It now is, and we have natural rights to overturn the tyranny that has ensued. We are rapidly headed towards to be under complete control of the Chinese Communist Party through a combination of judicial misconduct and this moral decline. So I hope you'll consider it as a priority and a platform issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And are there any questions? Ms. Lewis?
You said that you had a copy of a pamphlet?
Yeah, I can pass out to you. I have a number of these pamphlets. If somebody wants to come up and take them from me, I'll be happy.
All right, once you hand that, please come over here and log in with our secretary. Next up is going to be Nate Smith, and then after him, let me see who's next. Is Deborah Damon in here? Deborah Damon? All right, you're on deck.
Why should a vote on Texas independence be a legislative priority for the Texas Republican Party? Because the people want it. The Republican people want it. As the Texas Bill of Rights says, all political power is inherent in the people. 90% of delegate people in the 2022 convention voted for a plank calling for a referendum on Texas independence, and over 80% wanted a vote on Texas independence in November of 2023 via plank 225. 139,000 valid signatures were submitted to the party from people, Republican primary voters, asking to put this question on the primary ballot. Just because they took advantage of Texas law and submitted them online, are they suddenly not people? Their voice should still be validly considered by this committee. By the way, that online effort was so solid that the firm that we partnered with won a gold medal from the American Association of Political Consultants for that campaign. And even if you disregard Republicans who use the internet, I've personally spoken with thousands of Texans, and it's not the first time that we ran this petition. In 2021, we got 35,000 signatures on paper. I personally collected on paper 2,000 legal signatures across several petition campaigns. Texas people want this vote. That was at farmers markets, bikers rallies, fairs, festivals, and even grocery store aisles. Responses were enthusiastic. The idea that Texas could be truly free from federal tyranny brought tears to eyes and hope to their hearts. And the more American flags they were wearing, the more likely they were to support a Texas vote, because they held American principles higher than Texas membership in the Union. What about the people of 33 county and SD conventions that said, let's make a Texas vote a priority, a legislative priority? What other single issue passed from 33 county SD conventions? Why should this committee not even put that in the top 15 and let the delegates decide whether or not it should be in the top 8? Do you doubt there are ones missing from your report? I know it only says 13. Rachel Hell's here from Russ County. I've seen the email. She submitted it as a legislative priority from her county. David Nash, who testified just before lunch, was on the Legislative Priorities Committee in Gillespie County. His is not on your report. Susan Williamson, your fellow committee member, Maynard County Chair, submitted Exhibit I to the RPT asking for this to be a legislative priority, not on your report. That's 3 with irrefutable proof. So you can keep fighting the 180,000 pages of federal overreach that if printed out stand taller than the San Jacinto Monument. Or you can honor the will of our grassroots, our fellow delegates, the people, and put a vote for Texas independence in the top 15 priorities and let the convention people, delegates, decide if it's a top 8 priority.
All right, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you, and please check in over here. Ms. Stanner, you're up next. Demon, sorry. And after her will be David Carter.
Hello, I am Deborah Damon. I am a delegate. I am a precinct chair out of Williamson County, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Convention of States and ask for you to reconsider adding this as a legislative priority, and I'm going to tell you why. Someone just referred to the preamble that we strive to preserve the freedom given to us by God, implemented by founding fathers, and embodied in the Constitution. We are the party that believes in the Constitution, that stands for the rights and the liberties in the Constitution. That is our special interest, and that is a special interest of every person at this convention. That is what we're fighting for. Every day we are fighting for these rights. Our federal government is encroaching and taking everything away from us. That is what Trump is fighting for right now. Talk about unifying. we are unifying with him because we are engaging in the fight. At least we can agree it's in the in the Constitution. Now they're saying it's divisive. Marriage between man and woman is divisive. Believing in our Christian faith is divisive. Gun rights is divisive. Trump is divisive. Does that mean we stop voting for him? We vote for him because he's going to fight to protect this country. And that is what Article 5 is about. You may have received this in your email box. I'm sorry I did not have enough paper copies. But I'm going to tell you why this is so important as a legislative priority. It is the preface of everything that we're doing. This is our platform. If you go in our platform, you look at planks 13, we pledge an oath to the Constitution. 19, you want to make amendments to the U.S. Constitution. How do we do that? It is through the Article 5 Convention. 21, limiting overreach of government. 23, the sovereign people, our rights. 75, fiscal responsibilities. Everywhere in our plank is the Constitution. This is the highest priority that we have, is to preserve our constitutional rights. Okay, so this Constitution, this Article 5, the call on it, it was passed with 8 years. But there is a built-in expiration date. That expiration stops when the convention is called, and we deal with the things that has been called for, term limits. By the way, that's divisive, but we believe in term limits. Fiscal responsibility, that's even divisive, but we believe in it. Reigning in the federal government, that's divisive, but we believe in it. Thank you. I just lost my thought. But I am just going to ask for you to strongly reconsider adding this back, because this is, we're fearless people. This country was founded on courage and strength and faith and belief. We need to do that. We cannot be afraid of taking our constitutional right and using our Constitution to save our Constitution and our country. That's what this is about. Thank you, and I'm open for questions.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, and please check in. And our next speaker will be our Sergeant at Arms, Brian Fitzgerald. So,
I'm going to time myself.
You're your own timekeeper, all right. And you know what I'm going to tell you after you finish.
Yeah. Time, go on.
Right.
Let me get it started. Hold on. Many of the things that we've talked about here today, or yesterday and today, can be solved by Texans governing Texas. Getting rid of the federal overreach and the amount of bureaucratic nonsense that we deal with on our daily lives. There's been talk of the last petition drive about how many of the signatures were online. Well, I don't know how many people in here by show of hands have refinanced a house here lately in the last 3 years. I have, and I did it all online with my mortgage company whenever I refinanced. I'm a 28-year Army veteran. And whenever I did my oath, it was against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And what we are combating right now is the domestic. Because of the federal overreach, not doing a job that they have been sworn to by the Constitution as one of their duties in securing the border. The border is not secure. We all know this. Now every state is a border state because of the federal government bringing people in on airplanes, getting the NGOs to do their work and shipping them all over the country. Our own governor shipping them to other states, which finally put the word out on them saying, hey, this is what we've been dealing with for years. You get your taste of it right now. The Texas independence referendum is just asking for a vote so the people of Texas can get the vote on it. If the DC alleged or the DC entrenched politicians in Moscow on the Colorado want to not have the people of Texas have their day at the ballot, they are wrong, and we need to get rid of them. The Texas independence referendum will do that. It will tell the people that make the laws that they want their voice heard. Time.
Thank you. And are there any questions? All right, seeing none, come see our secretary. Okay, real fast. There are a couple of people who we are not showing a survey response from. So if you did send one, please just send it again and make sure you include your name so that we can identify it. But Paul Yamarick and Davis Ford, we're still missing your survey responses. Oh yeah, you sent me an email, but it just has a. Just try it again and see if it works. And as long as you put your name in, it'll be received. But we have one from everyone else. So next up is David Carter.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about federal overreach and the solution. I think something significant happened in this committee this day where you adopted the language, which I took a picture of off the thing that says, pass the Texas Sovereignty Act. Federally mandated legislation that infringes upon the 10th Amendment rights of Texas shall be ignored, opposed, refused, and nullified. That's lifted directly from Plank 33, which was left alone yesterday. And you added today this phrase, nullified by passing the Texas Sovereignty Act as filed in the 88th regular session as HB 384. That bill or variants have been filed for over 10 years and never had a committee hearing. That's why none of you know what it is. You've never read it. You have no idea what it says. It sets up a permanent joint committee of the House and the Senate of Texas to review all these federal overreach issues that we're all united in opposing and wanting to have some way of fixing. This bill is very well written. You can go to capital.texas. Whatever the website, and go to check 88th regular session, 88R, and then do the House Bill 384 search. Okay, now, what I'm going to offer you now at the end here is that the support for the concept of the state declaring a federal action unconstitutional or unauthorized is fully documented by, if I can get my thing to work, in the words of the Founding Fathers. If you will go to the Texas Eagle Forum website, Texas Eagle Forum, allruntogether.com, and go to the home page, and I think you tap the little three-bar thing, and you go to Hot Topics, and you scroll, and the very first thing in a list of several hot topics is Article 5 Constitutional Convention. What I'm going to give you today, I ask you to read this will change your entire perspective. It'd be like focusing a telescope or a microscope. If you'll read the 4 pages of carefully selected many quotes from the Founding Fathers, when you tap that link, it's going to take you to several things on the Article 5. The paper, the third one is amend or enforce, 2 competing views. One page talks about some of the concepts and desires of the Convention of State People, and the next half a page is about enforcing the Constitution, which is what the Texas Sovereignty Act would do. And then there's the 4 pages of quotes. I ask you, please, to read those quotes. Okay, that's my speech.
Sir, Mr. Carter.
Other way. And, thank you. All right, next up to speak is Mike Brewster, and then after him is Mike Brewster here? Yeah. Awesome, you're on your way. And then Karen Wiseman, is she here? All right, you're behind them.
Howdy, folks. I'm Mike Brewster. I'm from SD10, Tarrant County. I'm precinct chairman. I'm a delegate, and I'm not a quitter. I'm here to fight. I've heard some lousy things over the last couple of days. If you think the American people voted for that, you're wrong. Even the people that wear blue more than red in this country didn't vote for this stuff. So what's the problem? What am I going to talk to you about? I'm going to talk to you about elections because we've got problems. Everything in the election code is a law. Everything. Only a very few of the provisions in the election code carry criminal penalties. And we do have a problem with getting those prosecuted, there's no doubt. We have a problem with getting them investigated to where we can get prosecution started. The rest of the stuff is procedural, and we're not following the procedures in this state. So what is my proposal? I'm going to give you the quickest, least resistance changes that I can recommend after 3 years of very intensive study. We need to simplify this system. We need to get rid of the countywide voting program, consolidate the early voting with the regular voting to where we have one process. Currently, you're running 3 different election systems for an election. You're running early voting, you're running mail voting, and you're running day of voting, all with different processes. We need to get that stopped. Early voting and day of voting need to become one process. Countywide voting needs to go away. We need a better way to enforce the provisions of the code that are being violated. SB 1 gave us a provision that is just now being tested, but the suggestion that I would have to add to that would be to make any violation of procedure in the code contestable in an election contest. Right now, the election contests are very, very limited in what you can consider, and that causes problems. The recap is in countywide, consolidate early voting and election day, and add provisions to use election code violations in election contests. Anybody have any questions? Please.
Have you read any of the cases involving the election code in the law that emanated from those cases?
Yes.
Which ones?
I just read the one that just was overturned the other day. It was the last one I read.
So Judge Peebles' case?
Yes.
And you understood how the law had changed in SB 1, and now we can litigate whether or not the true election results are not knowable?
Yes, I do. But I also know that the issues that were considered there were almost all involved with the legality of votes. There were a number of procedural issues that could have been brought up in both the case that ultimately failed, that had a bunch of people in it, and in the other case that could have reinforced that. There is another situation that's brewing right now, and that's all that I'm going to say, that let's just say procedural issues would would have an impact on that, but we may or may not be able to get those procedural issues considered by the court.
But you would agree that the election code is not the election law. The law emanates from what's litigated in the code, right?
The law, and I'm sorry, I am very hard of hearing.
That's okay. The election code is not the law. The law is what emanates from litigating what's in the code.
Oh, I would disagree with that. You're telling me that the judge is the one that is in charge of legislation. No, the legislature passes law. The judge interprets and finds on facts of law. I'm not an attorney, but I can get you down to that. Anybody else? Thanks. Please.
Yeah, I didn't hear you talk very much about the machines involved. Are you involved very much about the corruption of our voting machines?
I did not, and the reason I didn't is it's not the path of least resistance, and I don't think it's where we're going to get the biggest bang the quickest. My personal opinion is the machines that we are using now and the manner that we are using them, that needs to end and they need to go. I am not as against technology in the election system as some people are. The way we are using this technology and the companies that are providing it and the circumstances they are providing it under is unacceptable. Anything else? Thanks, folks.
All right, next up is Karen Wiseman, followed by Rachel Sykes.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Karen Wiseman. I'm from Senate District 10, and I'm a 7th generation Texan. I love all the legislative priorities that have been discussed here today, but I want to tell you that 0 legislative priorities will happen if we can't win elections. And we can't win elections if we continue to allow them to be stolen. Our Texas voter rolls are controlled by outside vendors, Demtech from California and Civics from Louisiana, and these vendors are dictating the price to obtain a voter roll. The Secretary of State then passes that cost through to the requester. The price is currently between $1,200 and $1,800 per voter roll, but depending on the criteria that you request. Other states are charging nothing or $50. We have identified a number of key issues in our vendor rolls, and we also have a solution. The People's Audit is a software program that rapidly captures and sorts issues by county or by state. And this program was purchased for the state of Texas by Tarrant County election integrity activists. The ongoing cost to perform this audit is the price of the monthly voter rolls, and so we're currently fundraising for that. A couple of critical problems we've identified are as follows. We have 1.2 million bad addresses, undeliverable addresses, on our Texas voter rolls. So every time a mailing is done, that's $3 million that we're throwing down the drain. Annually, we're wasting $10 million. The citizens of Texas who are paying for all this, that's $10 million that we're just wasting. We've also identified a scheme where addresses are broken right before the mail-in ballots go out. Mysteriously, they get fixed the month after the election. And I've given you an example. I passed out sheets to the committee, and there's a spreadsheet that shows, I mean, it's just one of thousands of pages of these, but it shows you examples of what is happening with our voter rolls. And when you have an undeliverable address and a mail-in ballot goes out, we don't know what's happening to those ballots. Texas has 16,476 voters who are over 100 years old, and 201 of them are over 110 years old. We have multiple 124-year-olds voting at the polls. Okay. Okay, can I ask one more time so I can give you my
Yeah, go ahead.
my ask? Okay.
Yep.
I'll skip over the rest. What we're asking from this committee is that it fall under the election integrity. We want all election processes performed by the state of Texas and supplies provided by in-state vendors. We want voter roll management to be taken back in-house. We want our ballot stock and supply, printing of mailing of absentee ballots. We want that done in Texas. Our ballots in Tarrant County are currently mailed out from Pennsylvania. So that's, okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, question, where was it? Yes, Janera.
I just wanted to ask you, who breaks the addresses?
We don't know because we outsource the voter rolls to Demtech and Civics, so we don't know who's breaking them.
Okay.
But it happens in 5 states that are part of the People's Audit. Every state, let's see, I've got a copy of the states it's happening in. Everywhere we've done this audit, we show that it's happening. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Hans.
Just to let you know, we looked at all the voters that were over 100 years old, and we found that the elections people, if they didn't know somebody's birthday, they put in the default, which was 1920. So we ended up getting that cleaned up. They went and requested the birthdays. But yeah, we ended up like 20, 30 people over 100 and ended up only being like 2.
All right, and I saw that Henry had a question, and then Brett. Okay, Brett.
Yes. Okay. And my name's on the sheet I passed out to everyone. Yes, sir.
I'm an Aggie, so you got to explain things. What is a broken address?
That's an address that if you mail something to that address, it's undeliverable, according to the U.S. Postal Service.
And then you said that it gets fixed right after the election.
Yes, sir. It goes back to being a regular address.
I don't understand why someone would do that, what the impetus would be, and whose
So who it
who's seeing
would
advantage?
benefit would be a Democrat probably, because, or it could be a Republican, I don't know. So if you have a mail-in ballot that goes to a broken address, it's going to end up in a section of the post office with undeliverable mail, and they put all the ballots in one place, and then somebody goes and picks up those ballots and takes care of them. So there's a broken chain of custody because we don't have any guarantee that the person that's handling those ballots with the broken address isn't filling them out and mailing them back in.
All right, Jeff, and we'll go Donna, then Jeff.
And did you say that this is not happening in Texas? That
this is happening in Texas.
I mean that the broken addresses are coming from another state because the mailer is originating from somewhere else?
No. So the Texas voter rolls, so what we do is we compare voter rolls month over month over month and look at the changes. And what we're seeing is, okay, the month before the election, or 2 months before the election, the address is correct. And if you mailed something to that address, it would be delivered. Right before mail-in ballots go out, the address is broken. I mean, we're talking about street names are changed, the numbers are changed, the zip code's changed. So we don't know where those ballots are going. And then after the election, it goes back to the correct address.
But the box of unused mail-in ballots, is that in Texas?
Yes. Well, so in Tarrant County, ours are mailed from Pennsylvania, so I don't know where they go, which is why I want everything done in Texas so that we can have poll watchers at the printers, at, you know, where these ballots are going out. We need to be monitoring Texas ballots, not somebody in Pennsylvania.
All right. I think I forget whose question it was over here. Yes, Jeff, and then we'll go to Peyton, and then that'll probably be it for this speaker.
So from the sounds of it, it sounds like this is something that is programmatically happening. It's not someone going in and...
Yes.
It's programmed to do this, to break them, unbreak them.
Yes.
Have you guys isolated this to particular vendors or?
Demtech and Civics.
Okay. So both vendors, you've seen that happen. Can you give some sense as to the scale of what you found? Are we talking 10% of the vote, 5%? Do we have some sense of scale?
1.2 million. I don't know how many, I don't have the number of total voters in Texas. 18 million. But, I mean, it's enough to change elections, I can tell you that.
All right. Peyton Inge. This thing has something I've seen in Denton County on, I'm just curious if you got an answer for it. But you got multiple people, a number of people on here who appear 2 or 3 times. I saw one from Denton County where there was a 30% duplication in a voter list. So what is the answer for that? Because you have, like I said, multiple here with the exact same name, exact same address, and it's showing that both of them voted.
Yeah, we're seeing that as well. I got cut short on time, so I didn't get to go into all the issues. We are seeing numerous issues. We're seeing duplicate voter IDs, some with the same person in the roll twice. We're also seeing the same voter ID with 2 different people in their voting, so.
All right. Thank you so much for your testimony. And our last speaker before we go back to work here is going to be Rachel Sykes.
Hi, I'm Rachel Sykes, Congressional District 1, Senate District 1, Precinct Chair 5, Gregg County, Longview, Texas, and a proud Texan, as well as a daughter of American Revolution. I'm here to talk about a few things, but I'm going to cover right now. I do support the Convention of the States, and I would just like you for a second to take a look at the 9th and 10th Amendment as to why. It kind of feels wrong for us to restrict that, just because it's unconstitutional to restrict it. But I want to go into the things that I presented to my precinct in my county that they passed to come to the state of Texas to be represented in these things. One of them was the resolution to repeal the 16th Amendment, fiscal responsibility and reorientation of government spending priorities. This is federal income tax. I know we talk about it, but this is a serious issue. A lot of people say we don't want to get rid of it because it's going to cause issues for Americans. Well, no, not really, because all of it's going overseas. None of it's going to us. I'm just going to put it bluntly. That's the reality of it. Go look at foreignassistance.gov. And all of our assistance programs are funded by FICA tax, which is payroll tax, or property taxes or other taxes. We're taxed like 410 different ways or fined by the federal government, directly or indirectly. I've looked up a lot of this stuff, and you can ask me questions later if you want to after the session. That's totally fine. The other thing is resolution to prioritize U.S. citizens' lawful immigration with tax dollars and ensure tax dollars are not used to aid illegal migrants and protect our borders. So these are tied hand in hand. These are tied hand in hand, the 16th Amendment, the federal income tax, and this. So they're using federal income tax dollars to help illegal migrants, and that is aiding foreign invaders, which is what, by definition? Treason. Treason. Okay? Treason. We can civil arrest our officials in the federal government right now. We all need to go civil arrest them because they are breaking our laws. I'm sorry, I'm gonna continue on because there's more to go. Okay, so the other one is resolution to protect the rights of U.S. citizens to provide aid to fellow citizens. So they're giving these illegal migrants they're giving these foreign illegal migrants aid, foreign invaders aid, but they're not letting U.S. citizens in 71 cities across America help other U.S. citizens who might be homeless or struggling without government intervention. They are either arresting them or fining them. And that's in Houston, okay? So all you Houstons, I want you to know that that's happening in your city right now. There are people that are hungry, homeless Americans that are not getting help because your government is fining people, finding other American citizens for helping American citizens, but they're giving money to illegal migrants. That is not okay. The other thing that's happening is, okay, so the other resolution was defending the rights of Christians, sorry, give me just a second. Defending the rights of Christians to freedom of religion and speech across all spheres of America. You might say that we have that, we do not. And also, I want you to go look and read HR 6090 to, dang it.
Do you need another 30 seconds?
Can you please?
Go for it.
HR 6090 to its fullest extent, because we in America, we have multiple Christians, and specifically in my county, that have had their jobs threatened over their religious freedom, and me being one of them. Resolution to prohibit the use of tax dollars for predatory content. This one you guys covered a little bit, aimed at children, and to enforce strict background checks for individuals working with children. Why in the world have I seen like 30 cases of pedophiles working in the state of Texas? That is not okay in our school system, and it's mostly administrators. What the heck, guys? Okay, and the other one is resolution to cap federal official salaries at their state average and ensure equal taxation. So they're earning whatever we're earning so that they represent us well, because they're getting these nice hefty compensations like CEOs, but they're acting like we don't matter. Okay, that's it.
The most passionate.
Does anyone
speech
have any
today.
questions? No, sorry, not Hans. Johan.
If you could sum up, what did you want us to make a priority?
Those were all supposed to be on the priorities. I emailed you guys, I sent multiple messages, and it just never got put there. And nobody paid attention to it. These were all things that were voted on by my county to come to the state level and be a priority. But for some reason, they never got to you guys. I don't know why. I was just bringing them to your attention. These were all passed. They passed my county, they passed Precinct 5, passed Gregg County. I just wanted to make sure you guys had that.
Yeah. Can you email them to me?
Yeah, I can email them to you.
Yeah, please do.
Scott, I just want to make a comment.
Yes.
Does she not instill hope in you and the younger generation of the Republican Party, or what?
All right. Well, I think with that, that concludes our public testimony for now. So we're getting the emails from her now, and I'll make sure everybody has access to those. Okay. We are getting the information from her now, and I'll make sure everybody has access to those resolutions. So there were a lot of difficulties getting all, and this happens with platform committee too. It happens every convention, it seems like, where every county and SD convention submits platform and legislative priorities, but really they're combined into resolutions. And so what we try and encourage people to do is isolate the language that you want us to use, because the resolutions that you get at the county and SD level that have all the whereas clauses and everything like that, we get so many of those that it's hard to consolidate. And so we did our best to go through everything we got from the counties and SDs and summarize it so that we would have enough material to work with in our committee. If something didn't make it, I'm really sorry. Just a lot of hands had to be kind of shaken in a row in order to get something from the convention all the way to what we're working with as a committee. And if something got dropped, I'm really sorry. Work with your committee members and make sure that they have access to everything you passed, so that if there's something big and glaring that we just missed, they can bring it to our attention as well. But ultimately, that is what your committee members are for too, is to be a bridge between you and your Senate district, so that they can make sure that we got, or we at least looked at everything that needs to be looked at. And so my hope is that everything that that was passed, at least in some way, shape, or form, got considered by us because another county submitted it. But we'll have those resolutions to make sure. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and move us back into working as a committee and take our first run at consolidation. So we have the results from the survey that we sent out. And again, the reason it was limited to 3 items is because I really wanted everybody to dig deep and think hard about what was really important to each of you. And so I want to take that part of it seriously as well, because the more options we're given, the harder it's going to be to bring everything back to our 15. But I think we got some very good information from our survey results. And so we'll go ahead and display that on screen. And I think if there's no objection on process, I'd kind of like us to go item by item, starting at the top with the ones that came in first place and working their way down. And what we should determine now is this largely a complete priority that can stand on its own? Is this something that needs to be consolidated with others? Which you'll see some subjects like that too. Or is this something that we don't want, that essentially we would defer for now? And maybe if we had room on the list at the end, come back to, but in this second pass we're going through, set aside. So you can kind of see how things shook out. And what's really interesting about it is that a lot of the process-related items landed kind of close to the bottom. And actually, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see a lot of the things that got 0 votes were things like the Texas Speaker of the House, which is already in, like the caucus rules already exist in our platform. Things like defining a man and a woman, Secretary of State, like a lot of those didn't get many votes, and we may be able to consolidate those into some other items. But when you go up to the top and you see what people really chose, I think a lot of these are big, high-impact items, like silver and gold, eliminating property taxes, school choice, taxpayer-funded lobbying is high up there, judicial accountability, election reform, which is going to be a consolidation item. So I think what we've kind of come up with as a committee, even if we didn't really realize it at the time, is that we were consolidating around a very high-impact list. And so I think what we bring to our 15 and then 8 or 12, depending on what the Rules Committee ultimately does, is going to be an aggressive and ambitious agenda for the Republican Party to bring before the legislature. And so there's going to be a lot to work on. Anyway, Spencer and then Julie.
Just a quick question. Can you drop this in the Google Drive that you shared with us, please?
Yes. Yeah, and this will be a live document also, because we're going to be working on kind of the 3 buckets within this document as well. Julie.
I'd prefer that as our starting point that we poll all of the committee members for their top 15, not their top 3. For our starting point.
My fear is that if we do that, it's not going to give us enough information. Like we're going to see a similar distribution, except we're going to see the bottom items are going to have 5 or 10 votes each. So I just don't know that would whittle things down enough. Like I think this actually tells us a lot.
Is it a standing rule that I'd need to move for?
If you want, okay, Rick.
How is it we're going to transition from this top 3 to what we're actually supposed to do, the top 15?
Because everybody picked a different top 3, and so when you add up everybody's votes, you see a distribution of what was important to a lot of people.
Well, I think you wind up with a skewed process. If people vote for all their personal 15, it shakes out, and then you've got a rank order of all of them.
But I think there are going to be some issues that are very important to a minority of the committee, but everyone would agree with them. that maybe still need to be on the list. So Spencer and Julie again.
I think that there was a motion on the floor, and we need to consider that.
Okay. So the motion is to do another survey, but with our top 15 instead of our top 3?
That our process for a starting point should be done with polling the committee members' top 15 instead of the top 3.
Okay. All right. All right, and that was seconded. Is there any debate on this?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually found this exercise very useful. And I'm not happy with all the results, okay? Like, I was the only one who voted for E-Verify, okay? And, you know, silver and gold wouldn't be in my top 20 or my top 30. Judicial accountability wouldn't be in my top 100. But that's very interesting. So, but the idea that, look at the ones that got 0, the fact that no one on the committee, no one wanted it in their top 3, I think that's pretty telling. So I think this is a good exercise. I don't know what prolonging this and delaying the process while we fill out another survey would do that this doesn't already tell us.
All right. Sorry, I saw your hand up. Johan?
My name's Johan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
I keep thinking of you and Hans, and I know you're both like back, German names back near the back of the room. So,
is it in order to offer friendly amendments to the motion?
I mean, there's technically no such thing as a friendly amendment. What would you like to do?
I understand your point that 15 is a lot and doesn't tell us much. I feel like 3 is pretty tight. Is there a middle number that we could all agree on? If we did do a poll again, maybe not quite 15, but.
So, okay, we could do that. The reason we did a low number is because it actually forces people to make decisions. This entire time, we have been adding. And so we finally, like at some point, it is now 3:35 p.m. on the second day, we've got to start subtracting. We have to. And because it's what this committee has to do. And so this was an initial attempt to get a snapshot look at what people think. And all another poll is going to tell you is it's going to tell you maybe something similar, but it's just going to be more muddled. So we are going to go through every item still. And if something's really important to you, then you can then we can discuss it then. But we have to start categorizing these items because we can't send a list of 43 things to the floor. And so this is giving us useful information that we can use to work our way through. If we did another poll, it would be another 2 hours before we could even get started. So I think we need to get started.
Can I?
Donna.
Can we see the zeros again, the ones that got 0 votes, and maybe start from the bottom rather than the top so that we're not
Can you enlarge it? Because we can't even read it from
the
over here.
most argumentative ones first? And maybe
Well,
clean-
so I think what the top shows us is that they're actually not that argumentative. I think the ones that landed at the top are the ones that are very widely supported and important to a lot of people. So I would like to start building the list from there. And we can look at the ones that have 0, and we'll go through every single one. We're not going to just stop when we get to 15. Rick, and then Erica.
Am I correct that there's a motion on the floor?
Okay, the motion is to redo the survey with 15 responses each.
I wish to speak in favor of it.
Go ahead.
The top 3 do not, in my opinion, accurately reflect the wishes of the group.
What is your evidence of that?
For example, if you vote for the top 3, but you wanted number 5, 6, and 7 included, you're precluded from expressing that opinion. And if people are allowed to vote for their favorite 15, you add up the votes, the top 15 are what goes to the floor for the delegates to decide the top half in ties or 8.
All right, Hans.
I'm against the motion at this point. I think that what we've already taken does show that the very bottom is not a priority, and that's the easiest thing to take out, is to take out the things that are not priorities. I know what the intention is. You don't want the top 6 to be the hardcore, but we can get to that. But to take another survey would delay the process of getting rid of the bottom. And also, if we start going from the top right now, we're going to get into language arguments. And I think we need to start narrowing the field and start defining the language. But if we just start with the top one, it could take a long, long time.
Christy, and then we'll go back to Julie.
What if one of the items at the bottom would have been everyone's 4th choice?
It's possible, but it was nobody's top 3. So that, which does tell you something. And the other thing is too, the other reason that I would rather start from the top is because it gives us a better opportunity for consolidation. So for instance, if you go back up to the top items, if you, like number 5 is election reform, I would envision us taking that item and putting it in the consolidation category so that as we go down the list, if there are other things that we find kind of naturally fit within it, then we can use that as a place to add, as long as it fits well with the priority. So we use the top-rated one as a base, and then we can modify. However, some of these, like there is not a single thing on this list that fits in well with silver and gold, which is our top one. So I think it's very obvious we don't even need to think about it anymore. That one's probably going to be on our list. So we need to just put it on the list, and we'll workshop it later. But anyway, Erica and then Julie.
You said it would take us another 2 hours to make that decision. Why took it 2 hours to do that?
It took us a while to put together that first survey. It actually costs money too. It cost us about $50 to send it out. But it takes time to put all the information in, to set up the survey, email it out, get everyone to complete it. And so once we did that, I think you really have to think about, would that give us so much more information that the hour or 2 we spend doing that would save us an hour or 2 on discussion? I don't know that it would. I think it might actually make our decisions even harder, because now we've got 2 sets of information to use, which makes it that much harder to start eliminating. Julie.
On my motion, there was an amendment, and I am perfectly fine with it being a lower amount than 15. 10 would be great.
Okay, was there a second on the amendment to change it to 8? To 10. To 10? Okay. So an amendment is to change the revote from 15 to 10. All in favor of doing that, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, that fails. So now we're back to the motion to redo the survey with 15 responses each. Is there any further debate? Dr. Malati.
I have a motion.
We'll let her go first, and then we'll get to you.
Just a discussion. I totally understand the sentiment of doing this over because it was very difficult for me to pick. But at least we have a starting point. I think, if we do redo it, we're going to be redoing it based on this big list. And there may be areas that we're going to consolidate, and then we would all choose that consolidated version as one of our top ones. So maybe we should get into that discussion of, which ones kind of consolidate together, because otherwise we're going to have the same dilemma of ones that are in different areas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I request permission to file a minority report objecting to this process.
Okay, you can file a minority report to the permanent committee report on Thursday.
Yes, but for the record, I'm requesting permission to file a minority report to the floor objecting to this process as not being representative and therefore should be stricken.
You don't have to ask permission to file a minority report. You would file that with the secretary of the convention. You would file that
I can't hear you,
okay,
sir.
If you wish to file a minority report to the permanent committee report, you can do that with the secretary of the convention.
I will do so. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further debate on redoing the survey? Seeing none, all in favor of redoing the survey with 15 choices, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
That fails.
Could we do a show of hands?
Okay, we can do a show of hands. All in favor, please raise your hands.
They're just wasting our time. They are wasting our time.
All right, I have 16. All opposed, please raise your hands. All right, I have 10. So we will recess for 15 minutes. Okay. Can you send me the link to it? And this is with 15 options? Same link? Okay. All right. Everyone pull up the link that you were sent before, and I think it should let you send a new response. I know, it won't let you retake it if you already took the survey. All right, while we are waiting on this, we might as well, I think we can still recess for 15 minutes while we work on the survey. So let's go ahead and take our break. But let's not do it until the survey link is ready, and that way y'all can work on your surveys. And also, can we take down the results?
and talk about it till I'm blue in the face. It took me 2 years of studying this deeply, reading all the debates, looking at all the possibilities, studying every possible outcome before I finally switched and said, you know what, this is the method to save the Constitution. Same thing happened to David Barton, same thing happened to Mark Levin. Virtually every conservative constitutional scholar in the country went through that same process and now says, this is the only way we're going to prevent our nation from falling apart. We have to restore federalism, which means we let all 50 states have their own personalities. California wants to be goofy and weird. Let them be goofy and weird. But Texas should determine Texas' future. And the only way that's going to happen is restoring federalism and putting the federal government back into its box. And the only way that happens is Article 5. So I beg you to please reconsider this issue. Please study it. Take one of my Constitution classes, call me, let's debate it, let's have civil discourse. Without civil discourse, we're headed to civil war. We are on the same team. Everyone in this room wants the same outcome for Texas. We want the same freedoms for our families. We want the federal government back in its box. And what we've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years to try to make that happen is not working. And it's not going to work in the future no matter who we elect. If we elect good people into a broken system, the system stays broken. We have to change it from the states. We have to restructure the process back to what the Founding Fathers envisioned. And we have the power to do it. Let's use it. You have the power to do it. Tell your legislators here in Texas that you want it done. Tell your friends around the country that you want it done. Let's put the federal government back in their box and restore our state sovereignty as it should be. Okay, that's the one issue I wanted to talk to you about. Please take a Constitution class. Get your kids to study these things. Watch Chasing American Legends, and you'll have a great time learning history. If you disagree with me on this issue, I still love you. You're still my fellow Texan, and eventually we're going to end up on the same side on this thing because we have to stop the federal government from continuing to try to tell us how to live our lives. God bless you guys. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right. We are about to put our survey results on the screen. So Michael is going to put those up there, and then we will get started. I think the process we're going to follow, unless there's an objection to it, but I think once we have the results up there, and I actually haven't even seen them yet, except to see like what a couple of them were, but I think starting from the top and working our way down is a good way to do it. Because if we have priorities that are obvious standalone priorities, they just go on the list. We'll talk about it and then make motions to put them on the list. If they are consolidatable, then we can put them in a consolidation bucket with the understanding that we're going to come back to them and try and move items from some of the ones that didn't receive as many votes to make them stronger priorities. And there will be a couple of those also. But no matter what, we will go through every single one on the list and make sure it's at least talked about before we figure out what to do with it. So with that, do we have? Yeah. Don't do a drum roll. We'll just put it out there. All right. All right. So these are our new results. The top two were eliminate property taxes and judicial accountability, then ban taxpayer-funded lobbying, creation of a Texas Border Protection Unit, harden the grid, school choice, sale of land to non-legal permanent residents, casino gambling, and then silver and gold was at number 9. So anyway, sorry. And this file is going to be available for everyone in the meeting folder also. So you don't need to take pictures of it because we'll put it in the folder so you can look at it on your own computer.
Were there any zeros?
Yeah, can we scroll down to the bottom and see what the bottom several were? So yeah, Star got 0. Oh well. I thought it was a nice idea. But just, yeah. It was a nice idea. But anyway, I think, so can we go ahead and create create 3 tabs, like for, I guess, confirmed priorities. And this is not going to be final, but this is kind of going to be what we're working with going forward. And then our second tab would be consolidate. And our third tab would be defer. All right, and just starting from the top, and we have both sets of results, so we can look at what people's top 3 were and what people's, like, which ones landed in people's top 15. Because I think there is some merit to the idea that if something was a bunch of people's top 1, even if they're not a majority of the committee and still did well among everybody, then even if it's lower on the list, it's still worth spending some time on. But our first item on the list is eliminate school property taxes. And then if you look at the working priorities list in your, which we have on here, and then also in your folders, we can read the language on that as well, which is to establish a permanent pathway to ending school maintenance and operations taxes and recapture without creating or raising any other tax by capping spending growth and requiring at least 60% of future state budget surpluses and rainy day fund surpluses to be used to compress the school M&O tax until it is eliminated. Is there a motion to move that into the confirmed priority list? All right, that is moved by Brett Rogers, seconded by Jeff Frazier. All right, Spencer.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Spencer first, then you.
Just a point of information, we're still wordsmithing after this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We are going to spend, so our deliverable by the end of today is our list of 15. Tomorrow we are going to spend wordsmithing the priorities. Rick.
I don't know that it's necessary to vote on them individually. We should simply accept the top 15 and move on.
I don't think that's a good, I think we need to talk about them as we go. Because some of these we're going to want to consolidate. Some of these we may take another look at them and say, maybe these don't need to be in our list. So I think we need to, I think we owe it to the people who submitted these items and to every member of the committee, because every single one of these made it on the list in the first place because someone made a motion for it, argued for it, and we discussed it and the committee voted for it. So I think we do kind of owe it to the delegates and ourselves to at least give each one a little bit of due diligence. It'll take some time, but we need to do that. Any further discussion on this one? Julie?
Not on that topic, just is this available to us in our folder right now?
Actually, it probably is. Wait, is this on the live document that we have in the folder?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's on the one that Michael sent to us this morning.
Oh, okay. Let me give you access to that folder so you can put it in. Hang on. If I do that, can you just put it in there? All right. Yeah, I thought I did that already. All right, you should be able to now. Any further discussion on this first item? All right, seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All in favor of moving eliminate school property taxes into the confirmed list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. All right, that's our number one. And we'll wait just a sec to get the files moved around so that y'all can look at this on your screens as well. Oh, really? Do I have access to this one? What I'm going to do is I'm going to save a copy. I'm working on it now. What I'm doing is I'm going to download a copy, upload that into the folder, and then y'all will be able to access that, and we'll just work with that one going forward. This is the folder that I sent out to everyone that has all of the documents that we're working with. Yeah, the Google folder. I think they should both be in there, right? I'll add it. I'll add it before I upload it. Oh, okay. So is it in the one I downloaded? All right. Hang on. Bear with me.
I think they may send it to us. I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's breaking all the pivot tables. That may be the issue. Michael, can you try saving a copy into the saving a copy on your laptop and then uploading it to the folder? All right. Technical difficulties. I'm actually going to. I think this is more a Microsoft problem than a Google problem, and I don't usually say that. Usually, I don't like Google Docs, but I think this is Microsoft being. Well, the problem is you won't be able to see the changes as we make them, whereas in the Google Doc you'll be able to see exactly what we're changing as we upload it. So, yeah, score one for the Google Panopticon. All right. Okay, so the file you want is testimony_priorities tracking. And this has the first revote, and then where's the original vote? Just take a picture of it now. First vote and then first revote. All right. So yeah, you can see them side by side. All right, and then we've got our confirmed, consolidate, and defer, and yeah, if you want to copy it into, we'll leave the first page alone and then just copy it into the confirm section. All right. Second up is judicial accountability. So does someone want to make a motion? And before you make your motion, think about, is this a confirm or a consolidate? Loretta.
I'll make a motion that this be a consolidate.
Okay. And so what, is there anything else on this list that you're looking at that we would want that could possibly be consolidated with it?
Yes, equal parenting.
Okay. So that's a possibility. The other possibility would be adopting equal parenting as its own priority, because it did make it to the top 15. So I think as we debate, let's think about that. Does anyone have any strong opinions one way or the other?
Hey, Scott, I apologize, but my screen doesn't look like that one when I pull it up.
Yeah, you should click on the tab that says first revote. I think we need to be showing that up there also.
Well, I'll try it again.
Yeah, so are there any thoughts about judicial? Okay, go ahead.
I can speak to this. I've
Sure.
talked to some of the equal parenting people. They are actually talking to the judicial accountability people in the back and agree that if we can get the wording right as far as family law, that they would be happy to be included under the judicial accountability heading.
So, Spencer.
I was just watching the reaction from the judicial accountability people, and I would say that that's probably not accurate. So they were shaking their heads as that was being said.
Are there any other thoughts? Rolando.
I'm kind of agnostic on, combining with equal, whether or not to combine judicial accountability with equal parenting. I would definitely be opposed to judicial accountability as a standalone priority. It's not that I'm opposed to judicial accountability. It's that not even familiar enough with the issue to have a strong opinion either way. I'd never heard of this issue until I came to this convention. Now, maybe I'm ignorant. I've been involved in the party as a precinct chair and activist for 14 years. The people in this room do not reflect Republican primary voters. We don't even reflect delegates. If you put judicial accountability in front of, the rank and file delegates, they'll look at it and say, like, what the hell is this? It is a very, very niche issue. And I don't think it should be it's hard to justify making it a legislative priority. Now, if you want to combine it with equal parenting, that might make more sense. But as a standalone priority, no.
Okay, we'll go Preeti, Spencer, Julie, Don.
I disagree. I think people will understand this when we explain it to them, because I think so many people I know in Dallas, and we think about the corrupt judges. That's why different judges have been elected. Like, we know that there's a problem, and I was really excited to hear actually the speakers, because they were trying to come up with solutions. Because I was like, can they get impeached? Like, how do we do this to fix this? And this is a way that knowledgeable folks are telling us that might be a way to help fix this problem. So I think people will know, and I think people will understand this.
All right, Spencer, then Julie.
So based off testimony yesterday, we heard that this is actually one of Governor Abbott's priorities that did not get taken up. We've also heard that judges have helped craft this legislation, and maybe I'm a little more informed because the person that's over judicial accountability is from Denton County, so I have a little bit of added benefit, but this is definitely not a niche issue.
Thanks. Julie.
I agree with that, and I believe it's a standalone priority, and I think that it may just be a niche issue for some folks who just aren't familiar with it, and I'm not either, but I definitely see the need for this, so I think it should be a standalone priority.
All right, Don?
Well, I agree with Rolando in that this committee is very different than the delegates because we have a lot more information because we're sitting here. And the Rules Committee has a lot more information on this because they're changing Rule 44 as it goes to the judges, which is judicial accountability. And after they get through with what they're doing, we'll probably know a lot more tomorrow morning about what the wording should be on this. But I just want to make that comment.
Thanks. I'll go with Jeff Russell.
Yeah, just a quick comment to Rolando. I agree with you in some form, but this is really kind of marketing. If we were to rename this Stop Rogue Judges, we would probably get the electorate to understand that a lot more.
Let's bookmark that idea for tomorrow when we start wordsmithing, because I think that's actually, like, that is something we need to be thinking about, is what is because not only do these priorities go before the delegates, but after they're confirmed, they'll actually be going out to legislators, going out to the public, going out to primary voters, and so we need to have kind of punchy, compelling wording in them so that it's not just clear what to do, but it also sells itself. So that's very good input, and let's keep that in mind going forward. So right now we have a motion to put this on the consolidation list. If that is voted down, then a motion to put it on the confirmed list would still be in order. But is there any further debate on this first motion? Hearing none, all in favor of adding this to the consolidate list, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're going to do this by hands. All in favor of putting this on the consolidate list, raise your hands. Okay, that's 17, so that's a majority. So we'll put it on the consolidate list now. All right, I've been advised that Senator Bob Hall is in the room and wants to speak to the committee. So we'll take a brief break for that. Welcome, Senator. Yeah, so just speak here.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And thank all of you for being here and working on this, because it is extremely important. I think I was the only senator last time that actually filed a bill for all of the priority items that we had. So I do recognize it's important that we give some direction, because we got some folks up there that need direction in there. I just have a couple of them there. I could talk on each one of those for a long time, and you don't want to hear that, and I don't really want to do that as much as I do like to talk about things like that. There are just two I'd like to address. One is elections. We have got to change what we're doing. If you haven't read my paper on the black box, you can get it on senatorbobhall.com. I describe our elections as being totally non-transparent. There's no accountability, and there's no way to know the outcome. It's unknowable. It's not unknown. It's unknowable. There are a few changes that we can make. They're not really that big, except in the eyes of elections workers, folks that don't like to change. You know, I have found that making people to change what they're doing, you can get them to do something they're not doing, you can get them to stop doing something easier than you can get them to change what they've been doing. So the only opposition I've really seen is we just don't do it that way. But we've got some key points in there that make us vulnerable and prohibit us from, completely stops us from being able to have confidence that the vote you cast in that polling place actually ends up in the Secretary of State's office. There is no visibility in that pipeline as it changes hands, changes forms, and moves forward. Our current system, there is no way at all to do that. The things we have to get rid of, first of all, is countywide voting. We have to eliminate countywide voting as a part of our election reform. We have to go to precinct-only voting, and we need to eliminate the gap between early voting and election day. We need to join 21 other states that have a single in-person voting period in there. You see, to eliminate fraud or error, you need to have three things to occur. You got to have a time period for it to occur in, you have to have a opportunity, and you have to have a means. Take away one of those, and the other two will collapse on it. The gap between early voting and election day prevents us from knowing what the vote was during early voting before it gets to sit somewhere in the courthouse somewhere for 3 or 4 days, and who knows what happens to that during that time period. If we get rid of that, it puts us in a position where we can run the zero tape at the polls just before the polls open to assure that there is no pre-stored votes in a dumb optical reader that's non-programmable. It's hardwired reader. Go through the election, and immediately after the polls close on election day, you can run the results tapes. Right then, before any equipment moves, anything happens, 7:01, you start running that results tape. And every precinct by 7:30, 8 o'clock, will have the results printed in their precinct. Well, we go one step further. The judge takes that result and posts it on the county website to further prevent any other changes to it. So you now have the vote that was taken in the precinct documented in the results tapes and posted on the website. When the county gets the memory stick from the precinct, which is a write-once memory stick, that means that when it gets to the county, they can't rewrite it. Nobody can rewrite it on the way. It can only be read. They just simply add the provisional ballots that were approved and mail-in ballots, and then they could send it off to the Secretary of State. But unlike what they do now, just blindly sending it off, they have to get approval from the precinct judge that the numbers they're about to send to the Secretary of State are exactly what they had given them the night of the polls closing. So we get verification of that gap. And then when the Secretary of State gets the input from all the counties before they can post the final canvass official version, The state has to come back and ask the county that asked the precinct judge, are the votes still the same for your precinct? Folks, we don't do any of that now. We have no way of knowing what was sent was received, or the people receiving it have no way of knowing it's what was supposed to have been sent to them. We don't have those checks in there every time that it changes mode. So if we'll make those changes, dumb optical reader for accounting, no gap, single in-person voting period, mandatory zero tapes and results tapes, and a hand-marked paper ballot on secure paper that has codes in it, sequentially numbered, every ballot sequentially numbered for the precinct, and signed by the judge, not stamped in a big stack 2 days earlier, but as they're handed out, the judge signs the back of it. We tighten up the control on the ballots, and then we've got a box at which you can say, just think about this. Right now we got $35,000 being spent on hardware to mark paper ballots, and they don't even do what we ask them to do. One of the manufacturers will print out the names, what you voted, but the vote it passes on is up there in a barcode, and you have no idea what that is. The way we can do this is to have a hand-marked paper ballot you can do with a 10-cent ballpoint pen. And now the counties don't have to spend a whole lot of money with a support contract for the contractor to be there that made the machines, to be there to make sure they run during elections so you can actually use them. If your ballpoint pen breaks down, you just pick up another one. Think about the money to be saved right there. Everybody knows how to color within the lines. We all learned how to do that in about the 3rd grade, and we can do that. But the really neat thing to me is you become a part of the election process that stays there forever, because that mark on that piece of paper, on that ballot that you made with your hand, is the baseline for the election, and it's there forever. You made it, a machine didn't make it, it was what you wanted and you put it on there. And I think that's one of the biggest attractions we can have to get other people to come in and participate in voting, so we can move above the 30% that we get all excited about now. Get like Israel. 90% is what they expect to have turned out over there. We can have a system to attract enough people. We just have to make sure that the right ones that show up to vote in there. But anyway, I think we've got to have those in there to protect our election. There's no reason we can't make them as a package and be ready for the next election to do it. Now, the other subject I want to talk to you about is protecting our electrical grid. This world is getting far more unstable every day. If you're not paying attention to that, then you haven't been paying attention to it. Electricity is the second most important thing to sustaining life. The only thing more important to sustaining life in our society today is air, because you'll live longer without food, water, and medication than you will without electricity, because without electricity you don't get anything else. No transportation moves, there's no communication, there's no light, there's no nothing. You can't even tell time unless you happen to have an old wind-up clock in your closet somewhere that you could get. And think about the poor millenniums without an iPhone. They are going to be something else. But we've got to take the steps. When I first started talking about this, there was a big question about what's it going to cost and what's it going to take to do that. Well, since then, folks, we've moved way beyond that. We've got 2 power companies in this state that have moved out and are actually doing something to protect their. One is CPS right here in San Antonio. They're working with Joint Base San Antonio to harden the electric grid that services the military here. Very important for national defense. They're proving it can be done. In Houston, we have CenterPoint that has not only built a hardened control center with some federal funds that they got, and they found out they could build it for only about 6% more than a non-hardened one, but they have now designed and built a hardened substation, one really sharp engineer down there that used new technology. The new technology he used was fiber optics for controls. And you know what he came up with? Is a hardened substation that costs 25% of what the one it's going to replace that's not hardened. Folks, we can do this. The only thing that stands between us and doing it is the will to do it. And we just need to give a good swift kick into the rear end to the power companies and those within our government that just aren't stepping up for the will to do it. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. Other nations are hardening their grids, and we're going to be left out in the cold, and I mean the real cold, if we don't do it. So I hope we can get hardening the grid high on that priority list along with our election. And if you like, anybody has a question, I'd be glad to try to answer it.
All right, we'll go Brett, Spencer, Peyton, then Hans and Erica, and I think that'll probably be all.
Yeah, I see that. I'm looking for number 2, right behind elections. But that's good, yes.
Senator Hall, so last night we were trying to figure out the perfect language, and we all realized that we're not subject matter experts on this, and you are. So do you remember the legislative priority that was proposed 2 years ago, and would you agree to that language if you do remember? If not, I can read it for you.
That was 2 years. I have to look at that, but I'd be glad to look at any language you have. Whatever you have, I'd be glad to look at and give you my suggestions on it.
There right now. Okay, projector. All right, we've.
Was there another question while they're waiting for me to do that?
We'll go to Peyton.
Yes, sir. Senator Hall, its question is, you list on elections a whole bunch of bullet points, and I would just ask, is it more helpful to you on the end of this of receiving it if we actually specify these things out, or if we just generally say, you know, protect elections?
No, we've got to itemize it. They're in there. Protect election. There'll be those who will push for making some kind of superficial change to it. Be perspective.
So
we know. It's not that we don't know. If we were where we didn't know what needs to be done, I'd say let's just make it protect them. No, we know what needs to be done. We need to do these things that I've talked about specifically. Yes, sir.
All right, we're working on getting the language on the screen. Hans, can you go ahead and ask your question? Okay, Erica.
Thank you again for all that you do. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because you were talking about the election and your hard work on the election, ballot harvesting. Is there any legislation that's going to be addressing that issue? Because it's a real serious problem.
Yes, we are not as bad off as some other states with ballot harvesting. As a part of it, I am strongly recommending that we revise our mail-in ballot process. Now, we don't have drop boxes like other states do. That we should continue with delivered to the elections office or mailed back in, one or the other. But we need to limit who gets them. We need to limit mail-in ballots to the military, to the disabled, and to individuals that will sign an affidavit that they cannot be in the district the entire in-person voting period. We need to eliminate wholesale sending out of mail-in ballots to people over 65. Folks, if you can go to Walmart and H-E-B, you can get yourself down to the voting polls. But I think we do that. And there are others with the mail-in ballots, reforms in signature verification and identification that we need to make, but I kind of consider those to be fairly minor. And we're in not all that bad shape with the mail-in. I just think we need to pare it down and eliminate people sending out applications in the mail for people that it seems to be a practice. I think we need to end that. Yes.
Well, and Senator Hall, on that subject, one issue we have too is the 1-year timeline. What we saw in Harris County was, and I'm just killing time while we get the priority on the screen, but what we saw in Harris County was in the primaries, there was a 3-to-1, 4-to-1, maybe even bigger ratio of Democrats mail-in voting in the primaries versus Republicans, even though Republicans outnumbered Democrats overall. And so what happens when you request a mail-in ballot for the primary, you also get it for the May local elections. So they automatically get mail-in ballots for the appraisal district elections and all their local governments. And then in November, they'll get them automatically also because they're signed up for the calendar year. So is there any way we can end that practice?
That could be all part of it, the reform. This is one area where you could be a little more general in about reforming mail-in ballot to minimize the number, so reduce it. And some of this automatic stuff is what we need to get rid of.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for the senator while we're working on the projector? All right, well, we got the projector working. Do we have the language? All right, cross your fingers, everybody. There we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, the language we have right now is harden the electric grid so that during an extended loss of electrical power for weeks of months due to a natural catastrophe, such as a solar event, or due to an adversary using cyber attack or high-altitude electromagnetic pulse attack, a GMD, geomagnetic disturbance, can be stopped by paying for technology upgrades to our in-state electric grid. Does that cover it, or are we missing anything?
Not sure I end up the finishing of it, they stop by paying for I'm okay with it being an approval upgrade that we pay for it. It's the cheapest way to do it. We don't want the government to be in charge of doing it. We want the power company to do it. And so, yes, I would add, Kent.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, by the way. It's just
No.
you got here at just the right time.
Okay.
But
I don't want to hold everything. If you,
Yeah.
let's try to take a copy of that, or get a copy of it, and let me work on it, and I can get it back to you.
Sure.
Rather than hold everything up on it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to Donna, and then Davis, and I think that'll cover everybody.
Just
who
point
had-
of information.
Yeah.
That is not the 2022 language.
Yeah, that's. I think that's what we had in our live document so far. Yeah. Okay, Donna.
Well, my question was for this one. I just have concerns about the paying for technology upgrades.
Yeah, we'll get there when we start wordsmithing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm afraid that'll go to solar and wind and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
My specific question was, to the senator, was the 2022 legislative priority language, so if we could also please give that to him so he could look over it. That's not the 2022 one.
All right.
Bottom one.
Okay, yeah, the bottom one is? Okay. This is what happens when you show up to a committee meeting.
I think that's pretty close. If that's the one you want, I can work with that. If you like.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's I think that's close.
All right, Davis Ford, and then we'll probably have to go back to.
Yes, sir. What can we do about the power, the base power producers, i.e. coal, i.e. Gas, nuclear, versus, the bird-killing windmills and solar panels and such as that, we have to buy the unreliable power first. What can we do to switch out of that? Because a lot of that's federal.
Yeah, we need to not be so encouraging of the new installation of more unreliable energy. We should not have our schools or counties giving any tax subsidies, waiving the taxes for them, period. They need to pay for it, and the counties need to insist that there be a reclamation bond filed, so that if you get a solar panel field wiped out, they'll walk away from it. The companies will walk away from it because they've made their money. So there need to be a bond to pay for the cleanup of it in there. That will slow that part of it down. The other side is the big discussion we've got is to what extent the government gets involved in providing the reliable power, the thermal power, coal, gas, nuclear, et cetera. We don't want government to get in that business. We need to continue to find ways to try to encourage, and we're doing that with money, with low interest rates, to encourage the construction of new equipment, new sources.
Yeah, during Snowmageddon, you know, I could almost stand in my backyard and throw a rock and hit what we call Panda 1 and 2 there in Temple. You know, newish, almost brand new gas-fired facilities, and they were offline because we have to buy, according to federal rules, from what I understand, we have to buy wind and solar power first, which was virtually wiped out by that storm, and we didn't even have enough electricity to get those gas-fired plants running.
You know, I don't think that those shoes fit together. I hear what you're saying, but that hierarchy would have no impact on that gas plant running. The problem we have with our gas plants, we're restricted by environmental rules to not be able to operate at full capacity. And we were forced to shut down coal plants for the same reason. So the environmental folks have what caused this problem. The unreliable has exasperated it, but our real problem has come from the federal government's environmental rules that has run our coal plants off.
All right, last question goes to Dan Tully.
Thanks for being here, Senator Hall. On his question about the gas not being there, they have uninterruptible gas supplies to all the gas-fired power plants. The gas companies have the authority to shut that down to be able to keep the line pressure up for all the citizens. And that's what's happened. I worked in the TXU system for 12 years.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
My question to Bob, to Senator Hall, is why would it be wise to have the PUC or ERCOT establish base units that are designed to run almost full time? We have a base load that we need all the time. Then there's what you might almost call a semi-load up there to take care of really some of the hot days. And then there's real peaker load to take care of the massive deals that we have.
What is, can you
my
get to the question?
My question to it is, right now, we don't have that requirement. And we don't have a mechanism for those types of business models to be made. Right now, they're all fighting each other for that generation.
I think you'll find that a subject of multiple bills this next session, because there's a diversion of opinions on the best way to do that. Did you have your elections when we were going to look at that? That's what we started out looking for.
Yeah, so we actually have several items on elections. I know there's, I'd have to look through the list to see where they landed, but there are several items that address various aspects of elections.
Tell me how I can best help you with that, and I'll be glad to do it. Do it offline if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I think Dr. Malati has a question. I'll let her ask a question because I think she's kind of been focused on that issue.
We passed a few different items that kind of hit a few different things. Do you think it would be better for us, and I know we've been trying to create items that were just very narrow, like an action item, but I do think this is complex enough that it should be consolidated, and I'm going to propose that when we get to it. But do you think there's a benefit to saying something in the language about referencing your plan in it that includes eliminating countywide, hand-marked paper ballots that are secure paper, limiting mail-in voting, cleaning up voter roll, you know, all of those items?
I think I can get it down to something that'd be no more than 2 sentences.
Okay.
If you'd like, and I can do that. That would encompass those things, because I'm afraid if we just in the generalities, there are people that will
specifics, yes,
will leave out, because it's a systems approach. I mean, I can't help it. That's my job. I was a systems engineer, and if you don't have all the parts of it there, you're kind of kidding yourself with hitting here and there, and that's what we've been doing all along, is tweaking stuff, and we're not really plugging the holes. So I'll be glad to work on a statement or take what you have and restructure it if somebody can just point me, get me a copy.
Thank you. And I think, Donna, do y'all have each other's contact information so you can work with them on that? Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Well, Senator, thank you so much for coming and for.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
For everything you're doing. All right. So going back up to our list, I think where we ended was judicial accountability. Next is ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. Is there a motion on this item?
Move it to the confirmed list.
Okay. Rolando Garcia has moved to move it to the confirmed list. That is seconded by by Julie Dahlberg. Is there any discussion?
Oh, can I discuss?
Go ahead.
This is one of those issues that has been percolating for a long time, and I think that its moment has finally come. There will be an incredible chance to actually get it through the next session. Some of the most ardent opponents of it will no longer be there. And I also want to add, this is one of those priorities. If you want to stop grooming of kids, if you want to reform schools, we need to defang and defund TASB. If you want to do something about property taxes, you need to defund TML and TASB. Yeah. So this is one of those priorities that we need to get done to do the other priorities.
Any further discussion? Rick.
This has very, very broad application. TxDOT, for example, is lobbied very heavily by the various and sundry municipalities, this, that, and the other. And it gets a little old paying for the people who are fighting against you. So I very strongly recommend this be a single item.
Thank you. Is there any other commentary on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of moving this to the confirmed list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Next is the creation of a Texas Border Protection Unit. Is there a motion? Spencer.
I would like to consolidate this one.
Okay, a motion has been made to consolidate this one. Is there a second? Second. All right, that was, I think I'll put down Teresa Thomas. I think I saw you first. Is there any discussion? Can you kind of speak to what you'd like to consolidate it with?
Yeah, so if we go based off the rank, I can give you the numbers of what I was looking to possibly consolidate, and we can wordsmith it.
Okay.
So this is number 4 we're working on, so I would want to consolidate number 10, 12, 22, and 29 all into one legislative priority. It would be 4, 10, 12, 22, and 29.
All right, so that would be consolidating with end taxpayer funds to illegal aliens, end subsidies and public services to illegal aliens, require E-Verify, and prohibit assisting illegal entry. So I'll give my thoughts on this. I think the list you provided, probably the 5 items there probably split in 2 pretty cleanly. I would do 2 separate priorities. I would do one that is the protection unit consolidated with ban on assisting illegal entry. And then I would do a separate one because I kind of consider that is the at the border issue. And then the other issue is totally internal enforcement. So E-Verify, taxpayer assistance, and subsidies. I really think those are 2 separate issues. I'm not against consolidating either one, but I think they should be consolidated into 2 things because the approach on either side is very different. And if you make it into one big omnibus border priority, first of all, if it loses on the floor and it doesn't make it in the top 8, and we're not given the opportunity to correct that by the SREC, which is possible, then you lose everything on the border. and internal enforcement. However, if you have two separate priorities, then you have that safety mechanism, and each side of it will get the separate attention that it needs. So anyway, that's my thought on it. We'll go to Devi and then Brett.
Okay, just a thought, and maybe we're looking past each other, but never has the priority been meant to be all in one bill. I mean, we monitored and followed 100 bills on that election integrity priority last time. So I don't look as those 3 lines or 4 lines being in there. I'm looking for probably 4 or 5 bills at least that approach that in different ways. So well, you seem to, no, I'm for consolidating it in the priority, but I think the expectation for it all to fit in one bill, that's not, when you talk about omnibus bill or something like that, that's not what happens.
All right, we'll go to Brett and then Jeff.
I was just going to say,
microphone.
You're suggesting, perhaps if I work with you on this and I say, I go with what you're suggesting, you're really talking about border enforcement and internal enforcement, yes?
Yes, as 2 separate things.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeff.
I just want to be clear about the one subject question because we've talked about it a lot, and I apologize if we've gone too much over this, but the question isn't that we don't expect that it would have to be done in one bill or that it would only be done in one bill. Lots of different things can be filed about this with different approaches at different levels. You can break this up into multiple bills as it goes. But the fact that if it were all put into one bill, it would still all be constitutional under a one-subject rule. There's a difference between those 2 things, right? Saying that, like, you can do them all separately, you can break it up, you can file these, multiple versions of it. That happens all the time and for good reason. But to say if it's a priority, it should be feasible or at least constitutional to put it all together. And that's all I was trying to make with that point.
Thanks. Rolando.
I like the idea of dividing 2 between border and interior enforcement. And it's okay to have more than one priority related to border security and immigration. I think if you were to poll primary voters or most delegates, this and maybe election integrity would by far be their top priorities. And I often tell people this is, everyone believes their issue is, the issue and it has to be, but I believe if we, every single day, Democrats are importing new voters. And even if we were to close the border today and stop all illegal entry today, if we do not remove those who are already here, Texas will turn blue. And then we lose on every other issue. So I think it makes sense, 1, to have more than one, and 2, to stress both of them, border security and interior enforcement by turning off the magnets. So I like that idea. I think people will vote for both of them. I think when it gets to the floor, I honestly, if you put 3 or 4 border security immigration priorities in front of the delegates, they'd vote for all of them. That is how important it is. That is how strongly felt it is among our activists.
Yeah, just thinking back in the last term on the SREC, the idea of trying to jam everything border related into one thing, like it keeps coming up, and we keep going the other direction. There was very serious consideration in the resolutions process and on the SREC when we were developing ballot questions of making every single ballot question have to do with border security and immigration. We didn't go that route, but we did have several different questions dealing with different aspects of border security and immigration. So the idea that 2 out of our 15 priorities would have to do with that subject, I think speaks to the importance of it. But that being said, even if we go that route, we would still put number 2 on the consolidate list, and then I think we can discuss right after that which other items we want to move right under it. So let's go ahead and have the vote on moving creation of a border protection unit onto the consolidate list. And is there any other discussion? Just on that aspect. All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, and if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and jump ahead to I will entertain a motion to move number 13, end taxpayer funds to illegal aliens, also to the consolidate list. Is there a motion?
So moved. You mean number 12?
Well, yeah, it's number 10 in the ranking, number 13 item. Yeah. So so that motion is made by Rolando Garcia, seconded by Rhonda Marquardt. We'll decide what other ones to consolidate with them as we get to them. I just want to get both on the list. Is there any further discussion on that? Julie.
Aren't topic number 13 and 4 pretty much the same thing?
Which ones?
The topic number. So in taxpayer funds to illegal aliens, and then in subsidies and public services to illegal aliens.
Yes.
That's
So we're
pretty much
gonna
the
move.
same.
We're gonna move over number 10 now, and then okay. Well, let's agree on what numbering system we're using. I'm using the ranking. So ranking number 10, which is item number 13, is the one we're discussing now. Then rank number. Yeah, row number is going to be one higher because the row number is also includes the top row. Yeah. Yeah, sorry to be confusing. There are 3 different numbers. But the item that the motion is for is rank number 10. So is there any further discussion on moving this to the consolidate list? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. All right, we are now back to rank number 5, harden the electric grid. Is there
I make the motion to move that
to
permanent.
to the confirmed list? All right, the motion has been made to move harden the electric grid to the confirmed list. All right, that was seconded by Erica McCrutchen. Is there any discussion? Sure.
Sorry, I think the language we have there is not what Bob Hall was agreeing to more so just be aware of that.
Yeah, and when we get to wordsmithing, we can go over exactly what wording we have there. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of moving that to the confirmed list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that is moved. Next is school choice. Do we have a motion on this item?
Confirmed list.
All right. Okay, motion has been made by Rolando Garcia to move school choice to the confirmed list, seconded by Brady Gray. Is there any discussion on this item?
Well, it's kind of like taxpayer funding. This is an issue whose time has come. It was a huge issue in the House primaries. A lot of opponents of school choice lost their primary, who also happen to be just horrible rhinos in general. But they lost their primaries, and more of them are going to lose the run on Tuesday, yeah. Count the votes. We're going to have, I think the votes it's going to be close. Abbott may have to do a little more arm twisting. But this is an idea whose time has finally come. If you want to piss off TASB and the teachers' unions, they hate this so much. If you want to piss off all the right people, let's do school choice.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Carter.
I would just caution against that incentive and say that we should see if this is really about educating children or if this is about governmental involvement and about money. And I think that just because it's a hot topic doesn't mean that its time has come and that we should look at it closer.
All right. Is there any other discussion on this item? Rhonda.
I would like to also put a caution on this because you cannot lose the teachers' vote because they have a huge impact on that. And so just know that they see this as an attack on their jobs. And so I'm putting that out there. I also have talked to my homeschool group that works at Laughlin Air Force Base, and they are so split on this. And I understand both sides. So anyway, I know that even amongst the homeschoolers, there's controversy.
All right, Eric Russell.
Jeff
Russell, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, you know, this comes up every time in the teachers' unions and the teachers' groups and all that. You know, my wife's a middle school principal, so I kind of live with this stuff every day. But, you know, the reality of it is that school choice for students is also school choice for teachers. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever talked to teachers that are in charter schools or in private schools or whatever, the majority of those came out of public schools, and they are like 1,000,000 times happier in their profession in an alternative. So don't be afraid of the teachers. We just got to sell it to the teachers and let them know it's choice for them too.
All right, Chrissy Ratliff.
We had the VATRA come up in our county. I think this is the 4th year in a row it's been voted down. And it created a lot of animosity among voters and teachers, and it really is very poor. It has a very poor impact on teacher morale, and I think in large part that is because, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from, if it's TEA or TASB or maybe both, but the teachers seem to be indoctrinated to believe that this is going to affect them in a negative way. And I've tried to sell them the notion that less government is better. And we have this issue of teacher compensation, inadequate teacher compensation. And you have essentially the government setting their compensation. They're always saying we need more tax money for teacher pay, to increase teacher pay. And then when the voters vote it down, the teachers feel unappreciated. But I think that as parents, we all know the importance of teachers and what impact a good teacher can have on our kids. And I think when you give parents more power and control over how our kids are educated, that teachers will benefit from that and potentially have the potential to earn more and be compensated better, because parents can see the benefit of that better than a government entity.
Thank you. So I'll share myself, and it's not something I was going to go into too much, but I am a school board member myself in a fairly large suburban ISD. And let me tell you, I go to the TASB conventions. I've been to them before. I read their emails. I hear their testimony. And TASB is a nonstop propaganda machine on this issue. The teachers' unions are, every professional association under the sun, and if you look at what happened in the last legislative session, the public school lobby, who does not lobby for teachers or students or parents, they lobby for administrators and vendors. They were focused like a laser on defeating this issue. And they, I mean, there are entire organizations that claim to exist for other purposes, but this is the only thing they actually care about. And so they definitely see it as a threat to their continuing. So, so I think we really need to take a step back and think hard about the fact that a lot of the organizations that are against this, they're not stupid. They know how to talk to Republican activists. They know how to talk to people who think like us and give us arguments that sound good and sound like they're promoting freedom. But in reality, they are trying to use our good instincts against us to get us to not go with something, to not support something that in reality would greatly empower parents and students and teachers who are trying to do the right things. So I think this is an idea, just like Orlando said, whose time has come. I think it's going to be a reality in the next legislature, no matter what, and it's something that that we should support. So I'll hand it over to Rick and then Jeff.
To begin with the basics, our Texas Constitution requires that the state establish a system of free public education. It's not any more specific than that. We're at complete liberty to change whatever. Personal story. I graduated high school in San Antonio a good many years ago. There were schools here that weren't very good then. Tragically, most of them still aren't very good. Most of them are actually failing schools. The question I ask is, how many generations of children do we have to sacrifice before we change things? It's a fundamental principle of economics that competition works. I was waiting for someone or other to come off the House floor in the legislature, I believe 2 sessions ago, and I was confronted by one of the teachers union types, and he was busy telling me, oh, those charter schools, they're terrible and they're stealing all the money. And when he stopped to breathe, I asked him, is that why there's a waiting list to get in? I've spoken with a number of homeschoolers. Their concern is about strings. Well, no one I've heard in the legislature has really talked about strings in particular for homeschoolers. In any event, they're free not to participate. The only strings I would imagine would be a demonstration that you have a living child of the appropriate age and it's not your pet dog, cat, or parakeet. And I could go in, well, I will. One of the proposals last session would have taken $3,000 to $4,000 off the roughly $10,000 per student the state spends and given it to the failing school. Now explain to me, if you can, how that makes economic sense. We need to be able to reward the good teachers in the public school and keep them, and some of the ones who aren't, well, perhaps they should be provided an opportunity to seek other career paths.
All right, Jeff Frazier.
Just real quick, on the discussion about there being the longer-term effects of this and how this was being received, just tying this in with our first priority that we took right away. There's a direct correlation across the country where states, the lower amount of M&O that come for school operations comes from local property taxes, the higher the chance that they have school choice. Is a direct correlation. A lot of the states that had school choice, a lot of the states that passed school choice first, their M&O is under like 5% of their total. Like M&O property taxes make up about 5% of their total amount of school funding. Most of it comes from the state. Arizona is one of those. And so as you see, as local property taxes go down, the support for school choice goes up. And that's where we are right now, is we are at the meeting point of those two issues where this is crossing the Rubicon as it is, as it were, right, to get both of those going. And as both of those things continue, people will see the benefits of both, and it'll work. It works itself out.
That is sorry. That is fantastic context. Thank you. And one thing I'll also point out that we included on our property tax and M&O elimination, which we talked about a little bit, but it kind of dovetails with all of this, is that moving to that model where state funding follows the student, it is per enrollee, and less and less money comes from the actual local property taxpayers, also gets us further and further away from Robin Hood. It will be less. Robin Hood right now is destroying some school districts. It is such a burden, and it is so uneven across the state. And I know of plenty in Harris County. Thankfully, my own school district is not one of them. But there are a lot of school districts that are under punishing recapture payments that they can't find the money for. And the more we can move away from property taxes and toward per student funding from the state through sales taxes, the closer and closer we're going to get to Robin Hood no longer being a factor. And that is going to be a huge deal for a lot of our neighborhoods. So I'll go to Hans and then Erica.
I'd like to call the question. I think we've had enough discussion.
Second.
All right. So a question has been called. That has been seconded. All in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes. All in favor of adding school choice to the confirmed list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, that passes. Okay, it is 5:45 now. We're going to recess for dinner at 6 o'clock. But before that, I think we can get through a few more items. So next up, and this is an interesting one. This is, I guess, why the revote mattered. Because in the first vote, this got 0 votes. Ban sale of Texas land to non-permanent residents. But now, it's in 7th place. So anyway, it's funny how things go, I guess. But we'll go ahead and move on to that item next. Is there a motion on the ban of sale? Jeff, you're raising your hand. You want to make a motion?
Motion to move this to consolidate.
Okay, a motion has been made to move number 10 to consolidate, seconded by Michael Salvo. Can you speak to what you might like to consolidate it with?
Honestly, this could fit under the same subject matter as the ending of funds to illegal aliens, things you're talking about their relationship with the state and what they're allowed to gain from benefits and or purchase that could be still work under the same title.
If this were a standalone item, is there anything that could be consolidated to it that you can think of?
Nothing else.
Yeah, so I'll go to Dan Tully, but then I think I'm going to debate against it also, or after he's done.
I don't know where we would consolidate, but the lady that was the mayor of the Colonial, her subject matter would fit in incredibly, we don't have it anywhere else right now, would fit very well in this ban of Texas land and non-legal and permanent residents. This would be a perfect place to add that problem because those colonials, no matter where they put them, are a severe problem, and I think she's spot on with what's going on.
Yeah, so keep in mind where this priority started, because the addition of non-legal permanent residents actually came along a little bit later. Where this started is the government's entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. So really this started out kind of addressing foreign countries and foreign companies that are buying up farmland, especially in Southwest Texas, and things like that. And then we kind of expanded it to include non-legal permanent residents also, which would capture the I think would capture the colonias issue. But I kind of see this as its own standalone thing, separate from the taxpayer subsidy issue. But Brett, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I can see both, but I can certainly see how this falls into interior enforcement. Again, if I'm embracing your idea of border enforcement and then interior enforcement, the idea that Texas land is sovereign and should only belong to Texans, or at least Americans, right? Anyway, and certainly preventing a magnet to illegals, I can see that going in there, but you know, I'm not strong either way, but I can see both arguments easily.
Rolando.
I think it's kind of a stretch to try to combine it with one of the immigration ones. I think it should stand alone as its own priority. This is something that activists have been, this has been a huge issue the past couple of years. It passed out of my SD as the top 8. People feel very strongly about this. I think it deserves a place on its own in the top 15.
All right, Christy.
I agree that it needs to stand alone, and I intend to propose changes to it to include taxpayer-funded other economic activity from EDCs. I think a lot of people, they think this is a horrible thing that we're allowing these people to buy land, and I think they would be equally upset if they knew the magnitude of the amount of taxpayer funds that are being doled out to these corporations and individuals who are foreigners. They're basically taking our money and giving it to these foreigners and helping these foreigners develop economic status here in our country. And I think that particular part of it hasn't been brought to the forefront, but I think that if it were, by just tagging on a little bit of a small sentence to this, because it is related to this, that everyone would be on board with it.
Yeah, and I think when we get to wordsmithing tomorrow, that's something that we could definitely do, is make sure to, because I was not even aware of that issue, and I think nobody on the SREC really was when we were discussing this issue for the ballot question. But I think it's a very important point that not only, and these are foreign companies doing this, so a lot of times it's people who don't even enter the U.S., but the foreign company is being given tax money from economic development corporations at the local level to buy land in those areas, and then the money just goes overseas. So anyway, we'll go to Michael.
I have a point of information.
Oh, go ahead.
Is there any way that Michael can put the full text of what we're voting on the right side of the screen there in a separate window or something so that we can see what we're voting on?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Can I just add something to my comment?
Really quickly.
I just want to add that a lot of this is being pushed down from the state to the local EDC companies. They're leads. They get these leads at the state level and push them down and try to promote them.
Thank you. Michael.
Yeah. So to help everybody out, this is probably where it's going. We're going to move to amend the motion to move it to confirmed.
All right. An amendment to the motion has been made to move this to the confirmed section. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Christy Ratliff. Any further discussion on moving this to its own priority that would be confirmed?
I'm agreeing with that, just to be clear.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of moving this to the confirm list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that passes. Next is ban casino gambling and sports betting. Not casino gambling. I don't really, I don't care how their roof looks.
I'll make a motion to move this to confirmed.
All right, motion has been made to move this to the confirmed section, seconded by Julie Dahlberg. Okay, we will. Yeah, that's a good point. Title, not final. Yeah. All right. And does anyone need to see the language again, or are we good to go ahead and move into voting? All right. So any further discussion on this item? All right. All in favor of moving this to the confirm list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes. Okay. Let's see if we can get
Mr. Chairman?
more. Yes.
Point of information.
Yes.
How many items do we currently have on the confirmed list?
We have 5. Oh, 6. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we have 6 on the confirmed list, and then 3. We'll say 3 on the consolidated list, because judicial accountability, border protection unit, so external enforcement, and then not really external enforcement, but border enforcement, and then interior enforcement. So that's 9 items total. Next is silver and gold, gold bullion depository, which was first place the first time we did our vote, and now it moved down to 9th place, but that's interesting. Dan, do you have a motion?
Second.
All right. Motion has been made by Dan, seconded by Genera. Genera.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm, what is the motion?
The motion is to move the bullion depository to the confirmed list. All right. Is there any, Jeff Russell?
Yeah, just one comment. We were kind of talking at our table here, but, this is, I understand what the goal of it is, but I wonder for the average Texas voter if this has much bearing. I know we've got some people in the room that feel very passionately about it, and I understand their overall concerns, but this is one of those this is one of those things that I don't think the average primary voter is going to understand or care about.
Well, thankfully, we don't have to guess, because we had this question on our primary ballot, and so it was asked actually in exactly the same language, and it was 76.49% in favor and 23.51% against.
I would
Hans.
just say that we can work on the title. We can say like, make Texas the gold capital of the world.
Oh, we're gonna work on all the titles. We're gonna have the best titles. Don't worry. All right. So, is there any further discussion on this item? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of moving this to the confirmed list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right. That passes. Next is end taxpayer funds to illegal aliens. Yeah, that was, yeah, and I think we actually already moved it over. Well, oh, no, we did. Yeah, it's on the consolidate list, so we already got to that one. Election reform, yes. Is there a motion to move that to the consolidate list? All right, moved by Brett Rogers, seconded by virtually everyone. All in favor? Okay. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, all in favor of moving this to the consolidate list, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that goes on the consolidated list. Let's see how we're doing on our lists. So we now have 7 on the confirmed list, and then on consolidate we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 11. 11 so far, and we've actually discussed 11 items.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Point of information.
Yes.
Would it be a good idea to identify on the spreadsheet which items have been consolidated to each other? Because right now under column F for action, it just says consolidate, but it doesn't say like which items are being consolidated together.
We have them kind of clustered together on the consolidate list, but I'll just throw in some extra rows so that we can give them some separation. There we go. And you can see the live document, right? Okay. Yeah, so I separated them out in there. All right. Next after this is proof of citizenship to vote.
Move that we move to the consolidated.
Okay. A motion has been made to consolidate this one. Is there any further debate? Julie.
In the language, it is a proof of citizenship before any individual can be registered to vote. And I think that's an important distinction. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, do we know if this is something that can be accomplished without a constitutional amendment?
It's part of the Constitution requires citizenship, so this is an extension of that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on moving this to consolidate? The election item, I'm sure, right? Yeah. Debbie.
Just one question. So when we get down to the consolidated, all of the election ones that we're going to put together, if there's a need to break something out when we're wordsmithing, we're going to be able to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion to consolidate this one? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Prosecute election crimes. The Texas Constitution should be amended to restore authority to the Texas Attorney General to prosecute election crimes. Is there a motion here? All right, that has been moved by Hans. That is seconded by Julie Dahlberg. Is there any discussion?
What are we doing? Yeah, is it consolidated? Motion to do what?
This is consolidate. Good question. Hans, did you move to consolidate or confirm?
Yeah, we could consolidate.
Okay. So I'm going to argue against this regardless. This requires a constitutional amendment. In order for a constitutional amendment to pass, it requires Democrat votes. I don't think Democrats are going to vote for any of our legislative priorities, period. And so the lucky thing is, this is probably going to happen anyway. We just nominated 3 judges to the Criminal Court of Appeals who are going to do this, in addition to the one who already voted to. So there is a very real chance that the newly elected Court of Appeals solves this issue for us. But anyway, I'll go to Spencer, then Brady to debate.
So I'm going to argue to keep it on the consolidate list because we don't necessarily have to do it as a constitutional amendment. The Attorney General can go after things as prescribed by the legislature. So we need to set it up so it can get back to the Court of Appeals. Otherwise, they're probably not going to take this back up.
Brady.
Yeah, so I'm with Scott on this. I do think it's a good thing and something we need to see done. I think that we're going to see this done, and I don't think that we should take the time or the effort here on a priority for it.
Christy.
So, as I've stated previously, this is my first go at serving on this committee. And I know that our primary focus is to direct the legislature. But I also think that this list of priorities kind of defines who we are as a party. And I think there's a lot of uninformed or misinformed voters who are looking for guidance on how to go forward because there's been so much change in the parties. You know, for the last, you know, if you look at the parties 20 years ago, there's a lot of difference, and a lot of people haven't recognized that yet. And so I would like to keep this on the priorities list. I'm okay with consolidating it, but I'd like to keep it because I think there's a lot of Democrats out there, maybe not in the legislature, but there are a lot of good Democrats out there who don't want our elections to be stolen.
So I've got a question just to start with. Does the Constitution actually need to be amended for the Attorney General to have this power? According to the last Court of Criminal Appeals, it does. Right. So the court would have to reverse it. But do we believe that's accurate? Yeah. Peyton.
In our vetting process, I was part of the DC3, and we vetted an awful lot of the candidates. We did vet several of the Supreme Court candidates. And I won't give you the name because of what they said, but bottom line is they said that there's another way to come at this, that it can be done without changing the Constitution. And I would suggest that we push this out as both as a consolidate, but also wordsmith it to bottom line say, pursue the way to make this change, whether constitutional or otherwise, but pursue doing this. So we need to wordsmith the language, I think, and then it should be good.
Brett.
So when we issue the legislative priorities report, do we have the opportunity to issue a statement along with that?
Sure.
And so is it possible that for some of these things where there's ambiguity or we think that maybe it would go a certain way or whatever, we can say, listen, we think that even though this isn't a legislative priority, it did rank high in the committee, and we do urge blah, 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 blah.
We can do that. Yeah, we can pass statements of the committee. We cannot pass resolutions because that is within
Totally
the
get
platform.
that,
So,
right.
so it wouldn't be part of the report that is voted on the convention floor.
Correct, but it's just a statement
But
from the committee.
This statement, like this committee has already sent one memo to the Rules Committee. We can make statements ourselves that speak on our own behalf. We just can't, we cannot pass any report to the floor except what fits within our charges.
And I think that might get to your point, which is totally valid, that you're concerned about sending a message about who we are as Republicans. But I think if we make the statement as we issue this about some of these items that maybe would fall into that category, maybe that's a way that we can deal with this while trying to get the really, I don't know, most doable items onto the list. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I agree totally. Rick.
Yeah, the way the Court of Criminal Appeals ruled, and it is a binding ruling, it is a constitutional issue. There was a case from, I believe, 1933 that they could just as easily have referred to and ruled the other way, but they chose to do it this way, which binds us. And your choices are quite simple. Replace the entire Court of Criminal Appeals, which in my opinion is a good idea, based on other cases as well, or amend the Constitution. They've painted us in a corner.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Scott.
Go ahead.
There's probably 2 cases working back to the Court of Criminal Appeals that will have the new justices making these decisions, and probably sooner rather than later. And I don't know how to give much more clarity than that. And I do think that there's an indication that there are some of the remaining justices that are willing to change their mind and reverse this decision. I don't think they want to lose their jobs too, is what's been told to me.
Thank you for that. One other final thing to consider, and then we do need to move into a vote on this. If we are asking for the Constitution to be changed, even though we don't actually believe it needs to be changed, then are we giving validity to that original decision? Are we saying, yes, 8 justices who we're in the process of throwing out, we actually agree with you that the Attorney General prosecuting cases was unconstitutional, and that's why we're telling the legislature to change the Constitution. Versus, right now, we are kind of by default at the position that we are asking for a redo of that judicial ruling. Jeff.
So I don't think so, and this is for a completely different reason, and that is that the purpose of a constitutional amendment is not to do something that we weren't allowed to do before. It is not necessarily saying that we weren't allowed to do this before, but we want this to happen. The purpose of a constitutional amendment is to bind the legislature, the people telling the legislature, here's what you can and can't decide after this point, right? It is to say, this is the rule, this is the framework within the legislature operating. And so if you pass a constitutional amendment, what you're saying is that the Attorney General having the power to do this is something that we're putting above the legislature's pay grade, right? If you want to change it, then you need to come back to the people and ask for us to be willing to change it again, right? So it's not necessarily saying we didn't have the authority, it's saying we are cementing it to where if you want to do anything to change it, you have to come back to the people.
Thank you. I'll go with, we'll go with Peyton, Spencer, Don, and then time is a factor here.
I think calling the question's an interrupting motion. I call the question.
All right, question has been called. Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor of moving to a vote, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that passes. All in favor of moving the prosecute election crimes section to the item to the consolidate section under election integrity, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, that passes. And with that, we'll go ahead and move that over, and we will recess the committee until 7:30.